Suddenly one day the world around Ihan no longer had a single person in sight. His parents and everyone else suddenly disappeared as if they had vaporized. Even time on Earth seemed to stop flowing. Ihan was the only one left. Just when he thought he would live alone for the rest of his life, suddenly a deity appeared. She explained that it was because Earth had reached its experience threshold. From now on, all living beings would be able to use mana. That means the Akasa Chronicles have been activated and Earth will soon be flooded with monsters. Unfortunately, while everyone else was sent to the other world for training, he was left behind. This was a mistake, and she was the solution to that mistake. Now Ihan would have to live and train alone with a strange deity. Someone he would never guess would have such a huge impact on his life. No more words. Now let's watch Ihan's lonely 1,000-year journey, until everyone returns and how he becomes a god to be beside the one he loves. Ihan's morning started with an absurd shock. He was stunned by what appeared before his eyes, standing before the steps of the university, normally bustling with people passing by. But today there wasn't a single person in sight. The first thing he did was run to his classroom, but it was just a chaotic mess. A quick glance showed everyone seemed to have left in a panic. The dining hall was the same. Lunch was still unfinished. It was strange as Ihan silently walked through the empty hallways that should have been lively with students' laughter and voices. His mind had only one question. Could it be that he was the only one who came to class today? Leaving the campus, Ihan walked home because there wasn't even a single bus outside. The scene was eerily quiet. He silently told himself maybe it was all a nightmare, and the best thing now was to sleep it off and clear his head. When he got home, he climbed to his floor, opened the door, and shouted, "I'm home," but his mother didn't even answer. That made him even more uneasy because she was always home at this time. His eyes started scanning the house and stopped at the clock, which pointed exactly to 2:45 p.m. on Monday. This confused Ihan even more because that was also the time he left school. To be sure, he pulled out his phone to check, and it showed a similar time, 2:45 p.m. Monday, October 6th. He tried to calculate how long it took him to get home. It was about 2 hours, but strangely, the sun was still in the same position. Then a thought flashed in his mind as if the world's time had stopped flowing. Ihan stood motionless by the window, his backpack still on his shoulder. Looking down at the street with a doubtful gaze, he was right. A strange voice spoke, and Ihan heard odd sounds in the quiet space like wings flapping. Then the sound of high heels striking the floor. Behind him, a beautiful girl appeared. She told Ihan that time on Earth had stopped for everyone, except for him who was an exception. Ihan widened his eyes in surprise and asked who she was because she was the only person he had met all day. "I am exactly the person you're thinking of." The beautiful girl smiled, but for a scatterbrain like him, he obviously didn't understand the joke. Hesitating, he finally blurted out, "Are you a thief?" The girl rolled her eyes in anger and pointed at her white wings and pure white dress. "Isn't it obvious?" Then this dull god's brain started working actively. "So, are you a cosplayer?" That would be a perfect answer. After a few seconds to calm down, she solemnly introduced herself. "I am an angel, a messenger of God. My name is Lita. I'm here to explain everything to you. Basically, you're the one who got left behind." This sentence made him feel like he was hit by Mazaha's silent finishing move. Being left behind brought back painful memories from elementary school when he was left out on a field trip. Then in middle school and university, Ihan was always forgotten like that. He was afraid of being abandoned. He was never invited to the 2-day student events where Korean students freely mingled with their majors. The news Lita brought weighed heavily on his mind, causing him to collapse to his knees in despair. Tears welled up as he wondered why it always had to be him. Standing in front of Lita, he just smiled and said that everyone else had been sent to another world and only he remained here. Ian looked up puzzled why he was the one left behind. "Well, it's because a great catastrophe is about to strike Earth." She continued, explaining that this planet had reached its experience limit. "And now humanity can use mana. That means from now on you will be able to access the Akasa Chronicles. Or in other words, the status system." For a guy, Ihan naturally saw that explanation as nothing more than a game. But the next part is important. The appearance of mana also brought monsters that cannot be defeated by conventional weapons. If humanity in its current state faces these monsters, the consequences will be catastrophic. So God stopped time and sent everyone's souls to another world to train. Their bodies remained safe, but their souls were transferred to a new dimension. There everyone will learn how to use mana and fight monsters. Ion raised his hand and began to ask, "Can't monsters be killed with guns or bombs? After all, current human civilization isn't exactly weak." Lita replied, "Because they are made from high-level energy, even nuclear bombs are useless." Now Ihan began to understand the reason behind everything. But isn't there still something slightly off about this? Everyone else has left, so what about me? But Lita's answer made him furious. She said it was an irreparable mistake. The gate had been closed, and even God couldn't detect him because he was too skilled at invisibility techniques. Ian screamed, his face flushed with anger. What kind of dumb god is that? In short, hurry up and send me to that world and teach me how to use mana. Lita waved her hand. God is very sorry about this issue and has decided to give you a reward. But he didn't want to hear that. He just wanted to be where everyone else was. Unfortunately, it's too late now. She said they would return in 15 hours and she would prepare food for him. Just wait here. He was stunned to hear he had to live alone for 15 hours, wondering what he was supposed to do here. She suggested he train and prepare for the monsters, which confused Ihan because he didn't know how to use mana. Then train your body. Lita smiled as if this was a joke to Ihan. So that means this life is basically hopeless. He still pleaded to be sent away, but it was impossible at least with his current angelic powers. And so the feeling of despair surged. Ihan screamed with tears streaming down, and thus began the lonely life on Earth of a virgin boy. Earth now seemed dead without a single person in sight. This scene spread worldwide from crowded China to the bustling Eiffel Tower, all deserted. 5 years have passed since humanity vanished, leaving only him alive due to an accident continuing to exist and waiting for their return. During that time, Ihan obeyed Lita's advice and trained diligently, going to the gym every day. Ihan focused all his effort on each muscle group in his body. Meanwhile, everyone in the parallel world also trained their mana to prepare for fighting monsters, each practicing skills suited to their own energy. Actually, Ihan wasn't completely alone because Lita occasionally came to talk. She observed him closely and asked if he wasn't bored doing the same thing for 5 years. What other choice do I have? Ihan snapped irritably. Do I have a choice? Lita kept staring at the solid biceps before her, thinking this guy was really persistent, even surpassing the limits of a normal human, which made sense since she had known from the start only he could escape God's sight. Hearing that, Ihan angrily muttered as if it were all his fault, even though it was actually the guy upstairs who was to blame. Fortunately, Lita was a gentle angel who didn't take much notice of his attitude. Throughout that time, she visited him once a week, helping Ihan not to sink completely into loneliness. Lita didn't just visit Ihan. She also took care of him and cooked his meals every morning, noon, and night. The dining table in the apartment automatically filled with delicious dishes, even tastier than what his mother used to make, and when he finished eating, the plates and bowls disappeared automatically. Then one day, when Ihan announced he had finished the physical training phase and it was time to move on to learning martial arts and weapons, Lita wondered how he would learn without a teacher. He replied that he would find guidance online since the electricity was still working and the internet was available, so he decided to learn from the videos he had previously skipped. Ihan found it strange that the internet had been working for 5 years, and Lita explained it was because time had stopped. But with Ihan's slow mind, he wanted a clearer explanation, especially since it always seemed like daytime on Earth now. Then Ihan decided to go outside to practice martial arts. He chose a stick because it was a weapon that could be found anywhere and was easy to use. After watching dozens of videos online, he began practicing the moves he had memorized. Even Lita was quite surprised because he did very well, as if he had been learning martial arts for a long time. She watched every movement carefully and commented that he needed to focus on basic skills. On the other side, Ihan remained silent and continued practicing quietly. Then suddenly she suggested, "Do you want me to spar with you? Having an opponent will help you improve faster." Ihan was surprised she meant fighting with her. Lita nodded and told him not to be shy and to attack with all his strength. "But how could I lay a hand on my cute angel?" Ihan shook his head in frustration as if he really cherished his angel. Well, obviously that last statement was a lie. He shouted loudly and charged with a fist ready. "Of course I can." The punch carried 9 years of loneliness and frustration, but the attack was useless. With a gentle swing, the adorable angel threw Ihan flying to another corner of the training ground. "Now you get it, huh?" Lita told him not to worry and just keep training. Injuries are just free gifts. Time passed quickly like a dog running through the fields. 15 years flew by. The angel thought that with this level, Ihan wouldn't have trouble facing low-level monsters. And even when he reached a higher level, he would be able to use mana because I personally trained him, so there would be no problem. Coming soon. Of course, many things would change when disaster struck. Farewells were said. Ihan shook Lita's hand and asked if he would see her again, but she said it was entirely up to him. This was the day for that fateful moment. Ihan couldn't wait any longer because the day everyone returned was very close. and he even bargained for a special outfit for the grand occasion. He thought it had been a long time since he met anyone besides Lita. He was indeed a bit nervous. Though saddened to part with the angel the moment had come, he closed his eyes, waiting for life to return to normal, standing still for a while. But nothing happened around him. Ian opened one eye to see what was going on, but kept waiting and waiting. It was truly unexpected. Meanwhile, Lita had flown high and looked down to check on Ihan. Then she frowned with a confused face. In front of her, Ihan still stood silently in the stadium alone below. This guy was starting to get angry. He needed an explanation for why no one had returned yet. Lita answered with a sweet but reluctant smile. Hey, looks like there's been another mistake. Ian crossed his arms angrily and shouted, I hate you so loudly that even the birds nearby fainted, let alone anyone else. Damn it, he collapsed to the ground like a child. How much longer do I have to wait? Tears streamed down his cheeks full of anguish. I know I have no other choice, but this is really unbearable. Since that day, time passed dizzyingly fast. 15, then 25 years passed like a gust of wind. Anyone going through that would go crazy. Then suddenly 55 years passed and still no one came back. Earth remained silent. Nature without human hands had become wild. Ihan had no choice but to keep training tirelessly. Now a single strike from him could even break stone. Looking at the hands holding the heavy hammer, maybe he muttered to himself, resenting life with no equal opponent. For 55 long years, Lita always stayed by Ihan's side, appearing any time on the nearby grasslands. She never forgot to praise him for his strength. Ihan didn't really care. After 55 years of solitude, he stopped counting time. Of course, his face clearly showed despair, not knowing how much longer this would go on. The angel worries about Yihan's spirit. She asks if he's okay. Without turning around, Yihan replies that he no longer remembers what his mother's face looks like. This truly breaks Lita's heart. She apologizes that this happened even though it's not her fault. Then Yihan loses control and shouts loudly, How much longer do I have to wait? He says he's tired of martial arts. Lita flies alongside the disaster that could strike any time, saying he must not stop training. But she suddenly realizes the person before her has fallen into despair. Lita doesn't want to believe he has given up. She tries to encourage him, hoping he continues to wait for the day humanity returns. Ihan is fed up with martial arts and recalls what he has done recently. He has been reading all day, from modern literature business books to basic sciences like history, geography, physics, chemistry, and art. When the bookshelf ran out, he moved on to learning other languages to prepare for his world travels, starting from China, a place full of interesting things and thousands of years of culture. Then he went to Russia, the US, and many other countries. Throughout the journey, Lita stayed close so he wouldn't feel lonely. Ihan learned many languages along the way. During that time, he also read most of the books in the world from Europe, the Middle East, Africa, hundreds of countries. One day, Ihan told his companion, This is my last book and now I don't know what to do anymore. If that's the case, why don't you try taking a break for a while? But Yihan said that would never happen. I still have many things to do before the disaster strikes. After hundreds of years of solitude, Yihan still holds the belief that one day humanity will return. Everything he does is just to prepare for that day. Lita prays to God, Dear Lord, please bring humanity back. At a time when Yihan can still hold on. Sunlight filters through the dense forest canopy. Below, a wild boar runs through the bushes, but suddenly feels a sharp pain in its side. It falls down, gasping for breath. After finishing all the books, Yihan tried making tools and forging iron. He told Lita it wasn't too difficult to start, and the wild boar was the perfect beginning. She asked, if I kill all the animals, where will the monsters come from? Lita said he could hunt only the animals she allowed, but if he wiped them all out, the world would become unbalanced. She was about to say more about monsters, but luckily stopped in time. Yihan noticed and wondered why she stopped. Are you teasing me? Well, just pretend you didn't hear anything. Yihan returned to his main task, continuing to process the boar's carcass. Meanwhile, Lita thought silently, He's strange. He can do anything. It has been 274 years since humanity was transported to another world. That time is so long, even angels have trouble imagining it. It's unbelievable that a human could spend hundreds of years preparing for the future. Her thoughts are interrupted by Yihan's joyful shout ahead, done. First time doing this and getting results like this means he really has talent. Lita is stunned and exclaims, Yihan, you really are an extraordinary person. Time passes and humanity still hasn't returned. Waves crash on the sand, it's cold, and Yihan stands by the sea wearing a thick coat. Now he not only knows how to butcher wild animals, but also how to harvest sea creatures. One of his latest trophies is a giant sperm whale. In front of him, Lita shouts angrily that species is rare and protected from hunting. So can you just turn a blind eye this time? Let's just say this one died by accident and I just found it. 3 years later, Yi-han has become skilled at leather working while forging iron is still something he's learning and will probably take more time. Reading books is easy, but practicing without a teacher is another story because just one small mistake can ruin a whole day's work. As he said, it proved true right before his eyes. One strong hammer strike and the sword shattered to pieces. Yi-han screams in pain with a face like he's been constipated for years. In the following months, at first, every sword Yi-han made also shattered to pieces. It took him 5 years just to forge a simple sword. At that time, Lita was by his side wanting to admire Yi-han's first handcrafted weapon. She smiled and remarked, "This thing can't even cut a radish." Yi-han looked at it and said, "I never told you to cut anything." He told Lita to give it back. But the angel stubbornly refused, wanting to keep the sword as a memento. She said, "God sent me to help you, so consider this your reward." Lita held the trophy close to her heart with affection, genuinely admiring Yi-han's talent. Over time, Yi-han tried crafting all kinds of weapons, long swords, spears, axes, hammers, and countless others. Another 55 years passed in silence as he devoted himself to this work. Yi-han's patience knew no bounds. Whatever the task, he repeated it until he achieved the desired result. After hundreds of years of hammering, he finally became a true blacksmith and succeeded in forging a perfect spear after exactly 100 years of effort. Lita marveled. "Your perseverance is truly amazing. This is the most wonderful spear I have ever seen. But when magic appears, there will be materials even stronger than steel." She added, "Then I will make a new one." Yi-han replied as if it was no big deal, making Lita very happy because he never gave up. After the forging and meat processing phases, Yi-han returned to martial arts training, immersing himself in combat simulations until he lost all sense of time. Lita followed every move, thinking Yi-han kept improving as if many generations were combined into one person. But 1,000 years had passed, and she thought he might eventually reach his limit, something that frightened her. If that really happened, Lita thought perhaps she needed to find something entirely new to help Yi-han, something he had never experienced before. The idea of a romantic relationship briefly crossed her mind. She even imagined being held in Yi-han's arms, which made this angel blush with embarrassment. But then she snapped back because an angel couldn't think about such base things, at least that's what she told herself. Huh? Then she thought, what if it's an order from above? If it's no longer just a personal desire, then everything should be fine. She told herself if he needs it, of course, she would do her best to help. Just then, Yi-han noticed the strange expression on the fairy above and asked what she was doing. Hovering in midair, she decided to pretend nothing was wrong, quickly appearing below and asking, "Do you have something to ask?" By chance, they stood so close they could feel each other's breath. Yi-han was about to say something but hesitated, while Lita worriedly wondered, has he realized? But actually, Yi-han only noticed Lita's sword beginning to glow blue. Lita stared in shock at her weapon, not understanding what was happening. Suddenly, the sword stirred as if it had a soul flying out of its sheath and hovering in midair, astonishing them both. Lita couldn't believe her eyes. She had never seen anything like this. It took her a moment to realize it was Yi-han's very first sword. She couldn't lose it, so she spread her wings and soared into the sky, chasing after it. Yi-han tried to stop her, but Lita didn't respond. Suddenly, Yi-han felt a change around him, looked down at his hands, and saw he was wearing the old clothes from when time first stopped. At the same time, the martial arts simulator vanished right before his eyes at a visible speed. Yi-han immediately realized everything was returning to its original state. Above, Lita continuously begged God not to take the sword away. She only looked away from it for a second to glance down, and was stunned to realize it seemed a disaster was beginning. Meanwhile, Yi-han suddenly lost balance and was lifted off the ground. He couldn't believe he was flying. Lita shouted, "Yi-han, wait, it can't be like this!" She thought everything was happening too fast. They hadn't even said goodbye. But what warmed the angel's heart was that Yi-han's first sword was still in her hands. After so much time together, she had truly grown attached to Yi-han, even though she didn't know if they would ever meet again. Lita was an angel, but also a girl who had fallen in love with the person she was sent to help. Standing in the middle of the street, she shouted, "We have never kissed before." Meanwhile, Yi-han watched his companion walk away, wondering if this was truly their farewell. They had been together for so long, yet now there wasn't even a final hug. This breakup was too sudden. Yi-han thought, if I reach her level, will we meet again? They parted with regret, but still hoped to reunite someday. The moment had come, and the streets were about to fill with people again. It started with a strange light appearing at the deserted bus stop, then instantly turning into busy townsfolk. Another beam of light appeared in the university lecture hall. Students and lecturers suddenly took their seats as if they had never disappeared. The cafeteria began to fill up again. Everyone looked at each other in surprise. The university campus was crowded once more, just like hundreds of years ago. Yi-han stood in the schoolyard, closing his eyes. He couldn't believe this day had come. He was no longer alone. When he opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was a personal info screen right in front of him. Ayu Yihan Human Race Profession Level 7, Rank 1 Title, Lone Titan Passive Skill, Stealth Strength 72 Stamina, 78 Agility, 81 Mana. Seeing that status board, Yihan understood that the great disaster had truly begun. Nearby, he heard students chatting. Wow, you can open the status board here too. It's only been 10 years and Yihan is still around. For humanity over there, it's really just 10 years. Am I the only one who lived through an entire millennium? The young people were disappointed that their powers from the parallel world had been erased. Everything had returned to its original state. Yihan couldn't believe his ears, silently listening to the conversations. He also felt strange being surrounded by people again, having grown so used to solitude. Another very strange thing was that no one seemed to notice Yihan as if he were invisible. Then he looked back at his own status board. The active skill Stealth was at max level and could evolve, requiring evolution materials. Note the passive skill cannot be turned off. Yihan didn't understand why he couldn't control this skill. He began to panic, wanting to turn it off so everyone would focus on him, but he couldn't. He held his head. Could it be that his fate was to be lonely forever? After waiting for centuries, it all seemed meaningless. Born lonely, dying lonely. After calming down, he decided to just let it be and go home. Passing a group of chatting students, Yihan's heart sank. But still, seeing the bustling crowds after so long living alone with himself was wonderful. Time finally started moving again. The sky changed from clear blue to the reddish-orange of sunset. When he closed the apartment door, a sigh of relief echoed, finally home. At that moment, Yihan heard his mother calling him. The woman ran into the hallway, tears welling up from missing her son. Yihan didn't dare look at his mother's face because he had forgotten what she looked like. But then he rushed to hug her tightly. All memories flooded back in that moment, embracing his beloved mother after 1,000 years apart. The sunset light pouring through the window also softened his heart. Finally, after 1,000 years of waiting, he reunited with those he had always longed for. The smell of dinner rose from the kitchen, sizzling sounds coming from the pan. His father sat at this table holding a newspaper. Everything seemed unchanged. He said there was still no news from Haisa. His wife was surprised. "You're in Haisa while I'm here with the neighbors." Of course, Yihan knew that some things had changed compared to 1,000 years ago. His father said Haisa was perfect, but he had never found any special qualities. His mother said she couldn't learn to control mana and that it was really difficult. At first, Yihan thought he wouldn't get a chance to say a word, until his mother kept asking where he had been. He decided it was best not to tell his parents he had been left underground. That would only worry them unnecessarily. He lied that he had been in an unnamed, unknown town, what surprised my mother quite a bit. But luckily, the story took a different turn, when my father agreed with my mother that controlling mana is truly a very difficult task. But why include newborns, the elderly, and even pregnant women in that 15-day training program? My mother thinks they should have just chosen young and healthy people, probably because we are not allowed to disturb the balance of the world, even if that method isn't really effective. Yihan's random remark suddenly made him realize the astonished looks his parents were giving him. He suddenly understood that he had just said something he shouldn't have. His mother asked, "What do you mean? What do you mean by balanced effectiveness?" Well, that was just my guess. He told himself to be more careful with his words from now on, or else he would raise suspicions that couldn't be salvaged. She continued to ask what her son had accomplished. Mother heard that if you learn how to use mana, you can make a lot of money. Monster corpses sell for a good price. And Dad said people like that are rare, but he'll definitely be rich. Things that seemed only possible in a game, but were being talked about non-stop by his parents, made Yihan feel really strange. After dinner, he put down his chopsticks and turned to his parents. "Mom, Dad, I have something to say." Then he bluntly admitted that he didn't know how to use mana. Upon hearing that, his parents held back a bit. He thought something serious was going to happen, but then both of them burst out laughing. "Then just focus on your studies, son." His father thought maybe it was because of his genes, since he himself wasn't very good. Yihan felt relieved that his parents accepted the truth so easily, and now it didn't really matter anymore. After dinner, he went to his room, and what he saw left him stunned, because leaning against the wall was the spear he had forged himself. Why was it here? Didn't all the weapons disappear? Lita had done her best to protect that sword. Could this also be her work? He picked up the spear and noticed it was flawless. Now he didn't have to go searching for weapons to fight monsters anymore. At that moment, a status board appeared before Yihan's eyes. Steel Spear. Rare weapon attack. 800 durability. 500, equivalent to a mid-level bone monster weapon. also a miracle created by humans without using mana. Ihan was amazed at the power of the weapon he created, but wasn't sure if those stats were truly strong. Not letting himself get discouraged, it was time to start gathering information. When searching online, Ihan saw many new posts. People just returned from another world immediately rushed online to share everything they knew. The first thing to understand was how to level up and how strong you needed to be to defeat monsters. It seemed that an ordinary person could defeat a level 5 monster. In that other world, you had to reach level 7 to be considered a rookie. Reaching level 10 would unlock professions like archer or swordsman and many other options. At level 50, only strong warriors had the chance to get a second-tier profession, and third-tier professions were only available from level 100 onward. Of course, those people were considered national treasures, and because the conditions to reach third-tier professions were hellish, almost no one reached level 4. It was believed that level 4 or 5 was the domain of dragons or Bahamut. With all that information, Ihan thought this wasn't the only way to learn more about the new world. He should also ask around at the university. Looking out the window, he tried to remember how many years it had been since he last went to school. Strangely, not much had changed compared to the original world. Suddenly, Ihan realized he missed Lita a lot. Just as that thought ended, he heard a voice. It said she would be happy to hear him say that. Ihan jumped and looked around, trying to identify who had just spoken. The voice continued, "I was sent by the heavens to help you learn how to control mana." Ihan angrily shouted because someone had intruded into his life. But then he saw the person who had appeared, and that image left him speechless. The person replied that he was not an intruder. This time it was another angel visiting him. She introduced herself. "My name is ETA. It must be so disappointing to have another angel interfering in his life. That's exactly what's on Yihan's mind right now." Facing ETA, she said mana is very difficult to control, so God sent her to help him. "Well, I understand, but it doesn't help me at all right now." ETA repeated that's why she's here. Someone wants her to help him, the one who was left behind. Her words surprised Ihan quite a bit. She explained that Lita requested an angel be sent to help Ihan control mana as quickly as possible. Ian realized she still hadn't forgotten him. But then he wondered why Lita didn't come herself and why it had to be her. The angel said the administration was worried about the overly close relationship between a high-ranking angel and a human, so they sent another angel. Yihan nodded, thinking that just seeing her again once more would be enough. Ita said he wasn't like what Lita had described. Then suddenly her eyes glowed blue as she scanned Yihan's entire body, amazed by his physique and appearance. ETA, with a grim face, thought maybe Ihan didn't need an angel's help because he could take down low-level monsters bare-handed. She recalled Lita's words when her friend cried and said that Ihan needed care. He had been lonely for 1,000 years. He was the only one who couldn't use mana. Didn't she feel sorry? At that moment, her face looked exactly like a kitten begging for food. Given the current situation, it's quite sure she was just pretending to be an innocent angel. Anyway, everything was out in the open. ETA sighed, accepting that she couldn't refuse the mission assigned to her. She told Ihan he had trained his body very well, and now she would teach him how to use mana. Hearing that, Ihan was surprised and asked because he was still unclear about where to start. ETA flew up and stood on top of Ihan's head, saying she just needed to be near him to activate. "Because I am a supreme being, all your mana-related stats will increase tenfold just by my presence." Before even spending 1,000 years beside Lita, didn't bring any result, because that great disaster hadn't happened yet. Holding the computer in her hand, she estimated this process would take about a year. Ihan got annoyed because the angel kept sitting on his head. Did she plan to sit there the whole year? Of course not. I was granted invisibility before by a low-level creature, so don't worry. But what bothered him more was how could he bathe with someone following him like this? What kind of private life is that? Even when he went to the bathroom, ETA didn't give him any privacy. Especially with ETA's constant presence, he couldn't even access his own treasure vault, too. It was tough, but that girl didn't even care about the physiology of low-level creatures. In short, just be comfortable as if you're alone. Ian was stunned. Turns out she could read his thoughts. She was indifferent whether you jump around like an idiot or play games, I don't care. But wait. What did you just say? How do you know about that? The angel replied that supreme beings aren't interested in human entertainment. But Ihan didn't believe her because she was smiling. Clearly now he wished Lita would come back, but that couldn't happen. Ihan and ETA would have to live together for a whole year. The next morning, he went to university for the first time in 1,000 years, and ETA was still sitting on his head. Of course, nobody around could see her. Ian wondered if she really planned to sit there 24 hours a day. "Maybe because no one could see me and you weren't focused on your current task of going to school." He muttered, "Only I can see her, or maybe she was just teasing him." Suddenly, Ihan noticed people in military uniforms passing by. With the military moving around the city, he thought life hadn't fully returned to normal or maybe never would. The government was mobilizing the army to prepare for the appearance of monsters, but Ihan wasn't sure if that would work because Lita had said only Mana could fight strong monsters. This was the university, and it had been a long time since he last stepped into a classroom. Returning to reality, Ihan felt invisible again. No one saw him. Among the students in the hall, he opened his system panel again to try to turn off the invisibility skill, but showed a clearly annoyed face because there was no way to disable it. ETA thinks this is not a bad skill. It can be considered a pretty cool bonus gift. The two of them communicate without words thanks to ETA's mind-reading ability. Ihan is annoyed. This skill is more suited for losers. Suddenly, you overhear a conversation between two students. "Did you get a skill?" One asks, the other replies. "He got one but almost failed." Ihan immediately asks the angel what they are talking about. ETA explains they are combining a little mana and very little combat experience to try to obtain a skill. Like how humans look for something to fight monsters with. Why does this little one talk like he looks down on humans so much? ETA replies that from the perspective of a supreme being like me, even combining all those people's skills doesn't match your stealth skill. That's why I said it's not bad earlier. Of course, it sounds nice, but Ihan still thinks it's a skill for the useless. Ihan looks at the other students who already know how to use mana with sad eyes. Then suddenly he realizes he can easily eavesdrop on every conversation thanks to stealth. Even his gaze goes unnoticed by anyone. And so, from a disappointed expression, Ihan starts to feel satisfied being able to easily gather information. Right after he catches an interesting conversation. They mention a girl who once studied at the school now called the Empress, but no one really knows who she is. One student says when monsters appear, we'll all know immediately. Ihan concludes, there must be a female student who showed outstanding talent in that world earning that nickname. Back to the story, the students wonder when the dungeon will appear, and even if it does, they have no way to get in. He immediately asks the angel, what is a dungeon? Ite explains it's a real trap. A trap created by God himself, and inside are real, genuine monsters. At first, God puts food inside to lure monsters. When enough gather for a dungeon, he closes the door and they get trapped inside. Unlike monsters, humans can freely enter and exit the dungeon if they meet conditions. The dungeon is a place where people can hunt monsters relatively safely. Ihan is stunned by this information and asks why not just lock them all inside for safety. Wouldn't that solve everything? ETA replies the dungeon has a lifespan, and if not dealt with soon, it will collapse on its own. Also, some monsters are too smart. They won't fall into traps or can break them, even set traps to catch humans. That's why ETA advises you to always stay alert. Just then, the lecturer enters the classroom and the whole room immediately falls silent. The teacher goes to the podium, starts roll call, then gives a long lecture unrelated to the course content. He says we have to adapt to the changed world. The United Organization has banned free use of mana and controls the breeding of Roven. China and other major countries are focusing on researching monsters and world fluctuations under mana's influence. Depending on South Korea's actions, many companies will go bankrupt, but others will rise. The professor keeps talking while Ihan thinks. He feels the teacher talks too much. He came here to learn after all. Is it worth spending a fortune just to hear this stuff? What meaning does a bachelor's degree have in this new world where mana is more important than paperwork? And when will the curriculum include mana-related subjects? Hearing his thoughts, ETA Chen steps in. The best way to train is by hunting monsters. Ihan immediately replies, he doesn't want to do anything dangerous. But ETA says, we're in the early stage of the disaster, and the monsters are still weak. Right now, killing as many weak monsters as possible is good to take advantage and increase your mana level. But I'm still level 1 and can't use mana yet. Hearing this, ETA hesitates, but after a moment says, you have good physical potential, and it will be enough to take down monsters under level 25. Ihan is surprised looking at you as if you don't even realize how strong you are. Suddenly, ETA realized something and thought this was a great opportunity. She told Ihan that maybe now he had a chance to practice. As soon as she finished speaking, all the students turned their eyes to the window. Ihan also walked over to get a better look and discovered the schoolyard was flooded with giant insects. Everyone, including Ihan, was terrified. At that moment, the disaster had truly begun, and Ihan both anticipated and feared this day. The final moment X had arrived. Monsters were flooding the earth. Even those who had seen monsters before were stunned. The angel said the training was over. Now humanity must survive on its own. Among the students, screams erupted continuously. Some asked what they should do now, others wondered where they should run to, and why the military hadn't arrived yet. A few suggested forming groups to hunt, but everyone was afraid. They saw someone become the first victim through the window, and that was the last straw. The crowd quickly panicked and fled. Only Yihan and an angel sitting on his head remained motionless. He was completely stunned by the scene he saw for the first time. Tears welled up at the corners of his eyes along with a helpless expression. Could it be that once again I am left all alone? The goddess softly said she didn't expect anything more from him. But surprisingly, Yihan quickly regained his composure. He glanced around as if searching for something. Ita saw that and wondered if he intended to fight. Well, looking at them, they're even weaker than the sperm whale I once defeated. Ita explained that monsters are very different from ordinary animals. Their skin is very thick and accompanied by superior strength. Nevertheless, these are all below level 20, so they won't be difficult for him. While she was explaining, Yihan immediately broke one leg off the chair at his desk, and it would be his weapon. Yihan swung it a few times and nodded in satisfaction. Meanwhile, ETA thought to herself that strong spirit and sturdy muscles below level 25 would have no problem. Meanwhile, Yihan continued practicing with the makeshift stick. His movements were so decisive that the angel almost couldn't stay seated because of the gusts created by each swing. Then he even improved the stick using some available materials, and was completely satisfied with the result. This made ETA ask again how he managed to craft a suitable weapon with his bare hands in such a short time. "Did you ever learn blacksmithing?" Yihan laughed and replied, "You can't hide your sharp eyes, can you? I have a lot of free time." The angel recalled Lita's words that he couldn't do anything at all. He can't be abandoned again. To be precise, what is happening is completely the opposite of what was heard right. Holding the wooden stick, Yihan only regretted one thing, that he should have brought a spear. Yihan asked ETA if his camouflage skill would stop working once he started attracting attention. "If so, I want to conceal my identity somehow, and it seems a mask would be enough." Meanwhile, outside the university campus, the monsters were destroying everything around. The statue of the professor was quickly chopped in half by creatures that looked like giant mantises but much bigger and stronger. Yihan didn't hesitate anymore. He immediately rushed outside to hunt and attack the first monster. Wearing a mask on his face, holding 4 handmade wooden spears, he charged like a true superhero. His attack was extremely precise. The jump directly struck the monster's neck, knocking it to the ground. After the first kill, the status board quickly appeared. Yihan gained 800 experience points and leveled up 3 times. Stamina and mana increased by 2, strength and agility each increased by 3. In addition, Tai Chi Quan reached the maximum level. Yihan couldn't believe it. This was the feeling of leveling up, and he was pleased with his first achievement. It is known that level is the recording system of the Akasa Chronicles, where you can become stronger every time you defeat a monster. When you take the opponent's life, you not only get experience points and a record in the chronicle, but also gain their future potential. Yihan quickly realized that his mana had increased a bit, and that made him extremely excited. ETA next to him spoke up with an unstoppable attitude. "Do you enjoy violence?" Yihan nodded. "One day you'll feel this from me, too." Right after Yihan realized he was surrounded by another group of monsters. They were flies. Without hesitation, he picked up another spear and declared he had no skill fighting enemies in groups. ETA advised him to rely on reflexes and everything would work out. With no other choice, he charged into battle, facing a storm of bugs rushing in, slicing through the insect's protective armor with one strike. After the next victory, the system notified him of gaining 700 experience points. The spear method had reached max level and could evolve if materials were available. Received a level 11 Big Fly entry. Added 850 experience points to level 4. Strength, agility, stamina, and mana all increased by 1. ETA shouted a warning, telling him not to be careless. Attack from above. Yihan looked up to see a swarm of flying insects rushing at him. With no time to think, Yihan reacted like lightning, taking down another monster. Gained 400 experience points and a level 7 Big Mosquito entry. But at that moment, another appeared behind him. This time, the mosquito cornered Yihan with no escape route. Its giant proboscis aimed straight at his chest. But surprisingly, instead of piercing through, its proboscis bent as if striking stainless steel. Next, ETA was also surprised to see his body was trained enough to resist even the mosquito's sting. Yihan quickly fought back, handling the threat with everything he had. Ida believed Yihan had surpassed human physical limits. After killing the monster, Yihan continued his first hunt. Time after each monster defeated, the system sent experience increase notifications. Suddenly, a giant praying mantis appeared right in front of him. Its cutting blade struck at a lightning speed, and Yihan barely dodged sideways, easily killing an unlucky ant that was slashed away by the mantis's claw. At the same time, ETA warned that more monsters were approaching. Just as the words ended, Ihan was surrounded by all kinds of insects. He suddenly thought if he were a girl, just looking at this would be enough to faint for life. "If you're tough, come all at me." Two crossed swords with the motto, "Your dad is insecticide here." He soared up expertly, swinging two spears, scattering the monsters rushing in. The system didn't even have time to update experience before Ihan leveled up to 6. Suddenly, something strange happened, like a streak of light shot down behind him. Someone invisible was helping him kill monsters, helping him survive. Ihan's eyes darted like Zhang Lok under his mask, searching for the source of that power, and saw a girl with strong mana standing behind him. She wore ordinary student clothes, but had a strange jewel on her forehead. Ian guessed she was a mage, but ETA reminded him not to get distracted because there were still many monsters to kill. Recently, the strange girl kept casting lightning strikes directly at the surrounding monsters, easily killing low-level monsters in the blink of an eye. Ita said she must have an enormous mana stat. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to continuously cast so many lightning strikes. Maybe she was leveling up just like him. Ian thought silently. Soon, the two of them had defeated the last monster. Ihan gained another 1 on 250 experience points and leveled up to 7. Nearby, the surrounding students had been watching the battle with their mouths open, amazed at how amazing these fighters were. Ihan could finally breathe easy. He had just wiped out a bunch of low-level monsters, making an impressive debut. Just then, a troop rushed onto the school grounds. A soldier shouted, "Sorry, our vehicle can't get up here." But immediately after, the team commander stood frozen, unable to believe his eyes, because they had nothing left to do. The army had just received information about insect monsters appearing, but what had happened here was beyond their understanding. Meanwhile, Ihan was inspecting the monster corpses, hoping to find something like the Soul Stone from the legends in those comics and fanfics I read. ETA, seeing that, asked curiously, "Do you know how to dissect corpses? If you can, you might be able to find a magic stone inside." This information made Ihan particularly interested. The angel added, "It's located in the hardest part of the skeleton where mana accumulates. I'll show you exactly where." Ihan continued to follow her instructions while the army was stunned by his dissection skills and combat abilities. The girl who had fought alongside him just smiled without saying a word. She stood behind the group as if she were just a side character in a novel. Meanwhile, with ETA's guidance, Ihan managed to get the first magic stone and learned that it was the basic material for crafting all items. After a while, Ihan noticed an unusual sound. He looked around and froze. A crowd of students surrounded him, all raising their phones to record. The one who was always forgotten suddenly became the center of attention for the first time. Ihan's current feeling was truly indescribable. Suddenly, the sorceress girl stepped close as if she wanted to say something. Hesitating for a moment, she tucked her hair back and asked if he could help her dissect a corpse. "This is the first time you and the queen have met." Ian was speechless with an empty mind, but quickly calmed down and asked, "How much will I be paid if I help you?" She replied, 30% is your share." Of course, Yihan agreed immediately without hesitation and got to work. The students started whispering, "Is that really the queen? How did she get so strong in just one day?" Some even warned not to get close because she can shoot lightning, but many guys were eager to get hit by her lightning too. Seriously hopeless. While dissecting the monster, Han realized she was the girl from the rumors truly powerful. Suddenly, he overheard a conversation. "Who is that guy? They say rays of light come from his palm." The students speculated that he used a light sword to kill the monster. Actually, he wished he could do that, but unfortunately it was just a rumor. ETA asked how he felt. "Looks like that invisibility skill is good enough so no one remembers what you did here." That made Han feel a bit down. He started focusing more on dissecting the monster, searching for magic stones. Very quickly, he succeeded. The queen was very pleased with the find, a purple-colored stone that looked truly magical. "My share is done. Now I should leave this place." He turned to the queen to speak, but the exit was blocked by the army. They said there was something to verify. The team leader tried to say something to him, but before he could speak, a lightning bolt struck his back. The one who struck was none other than the queen. She couldn't let her friend be disturbed, so she helped Han distract the army. Her face was covered by a mask, always wearing a mysterious smile that made it impossible to guess her true feelings. Nearby students marveled at how cool she was. Some were so fascinated they wanted to be hit by her lightning. "Looks like I need to get out of here before things get more chaotic." With a gloomy face, he quietly packed up all the luggage he had collected. Actually, he wanted to be famous too, but the crowd acted like they couldn't see him. The crowd whispered, "Where did that masked guy disappear to over here?" Han waved enthusiastically, but no one noticed him. So the students immediately came up with a legend that the masked hero escaped at the speed of light. Ihan looked frustrated and couldn't stop feeling depressed, but ETA thought that ending was perfect. Strange, everything is fine, but why do I feel so sad inside? That night he went home. On the way, he stopped at a park near the apartment, placed the insect parts he collected that morning in front of him, and observed carefully. While ETA curiously asked what he was planning to do, he said, "Well, I guess I'm going to make some armor. Making a full set is difficult, but at least I should protect my limbs. But processing materials from monsters is extremely hard. I think the best option is to find a real blacksmith master and ask for help." Of course, this guy didn't listen at all, saying, "What are you talking about? The best blacksmith on Earth is me." ETA remembered Lita's words again, saying it was pathetic for a guy who couldn't do anything. She covered her face with her hand, unable to believe she was tricked so easily by that friend. Ihan then asked if she was missing Lita like I was. "I really am thinking about Lita, but not in the way you think, huh?" One fairy continued researching the pile of insect corpses. Seeing why Han focused, ETA asked if he knew anything about Minecraft. With an eager look, Ihan shook his head, never heard of it, but it sounded pretty cool. Not surprising at all, since he never had mana before, how could he know? Ihan understood it was a new skill, and immediately wanted to learn. He hugged his little fairy tightly, pleading to be taught. As for ETA, she promised to teach if he stopped shaking her. "If you keep holding me like this, how can I teach you, haha?" Apologizing why, Han scratched his head awkwardly while ETA was utterly bewildered, not expecting such rough treatment. She began explaining mana-craft mana crystals, like gems used to craft weapons or armor with special abilities. Basically, this craft evolved from traditional blacksmithing, but with magical elements. With a drooling expression, Wai-Han immediately grabbed her waist, begging her to teach him right away. "Oh man, this guy is learning a craft too, huh?" The angel couldn't help but lightly slap Yihan's face, reminding him she already promised to teach, so relax. She sighed, thinking she'd better send some love to Lita when she returned to the celestial realm. ETA could only think silently as she was tricked into watching over this hopeless guy. She continued before starting crafting, "You need to prepare materials and special attribute mana stones. Something like a dragon heart." Ihan was stunned. Dragon heart sounds as cool as in a game. She explained, placing the mana stones side by side to sync, then begin forging. After finishing, crush the stone and apply it on the sand surface. The remainder will form the basic shape. From there, the item becomes a magical item. Such armor or weapons increase attack by 30% and defense by 50%. Ihan asked if it was really that easy, but the angel emphasized that was just the basic form. There is a higher level that allows embedding special skills, but that level is much harder. Of course, with his current mana, he can't do it yet. Still, why? Han begged to hear more with the motto, "How will you know if you don't try?" ETA explained to transfer skills into items the blacksmith must channel mana into the mana stones. If mana runs out too quickly during the process, forging will fail. But if done right, you can create dream weapons with ice or fire attribute skills or armor that restores stamina in battle. However, skill selection depends on the crafter's will. Both mana amount and mana stone quality are very important. Ihan thought it over and realized the most important thing seems to be a strong will to achieve what you want. Before long, the arm and leg armor were completed. The system notified that he had learned the mana crafting skill. ETA couldn't help but be surprised he did it even though he didn't have the skill yet. Just knowing the theory is enough to practice? Sounds like what teachers often say in class. Ita thought quietly it would be so cool if he just kept quiet. But to be fair, he really is a genius at adapting. If he learns other things as fast, he'll become incredibly powerful. Thinking that ETA asked what he planned to do with the rest after making the armor. Ian replied, "Probably just wait and see." He then held a bit of the remaining mana stone, determined to use it with his mana. He closed his eyes and began the next process. The remaining mana stone glowed in his hand as Ihan used mana. Truly amazing, ETA was stunned nearby, her eyes clearly showing surprise. Because he was trying to create an advanced form on his very first try, but since he couldn't even control his own mana yet, judging by his tense face, she knew he was struggling badly with this kind of crafting because it was extremely exhausting. Then just a moment later, a weapon appeared in the air that looked like a scythe, and in Ihan's hand were still pieces of leftover magic stones. During the process of forging the angelic item, he silently thought he couldn't fail at this stage. She looked at Ihan's open palm and knew that was still not enough. Defying the rules, she infused a drop of her mana into him. The remnants of the magic stones immediately transformed into a colorful crystal, a manifestation of energy. Ian looked at his hand in disbelief, his eyes dazed, not comprehending what was happening. A powerful energy swirl surrounded him. The armor he had personally crafted began to transform. Meanwhile, ETA was confused. Has it failed? My mana didn't help at all. But Ihan's face lit up with a smile because he realized everything had succeeded. Ihan received a notification from the crafting skill system his mana crafting skill had reached level 2. The completed armor quickly wrapped around his arm. Right there on the playground in front of the dormitory, real magic was happening. Ihan decided to test the power of his new invention. The improved mantis scythe easily cut through metal chains. ETA was stunned. She realized he also wanted to attach the mantis skill to the arm armor. Before that thought could develop, Yihan's voice cut in. "We have to hurry now." ETA nodded. "Right. I did lend some mana, but it's unbelievable you created something like this on your first try. I need to increase your mana stats to make more items." But Yihan waved his hand. "No, I already broke the swing, so we have to get out of here immediately." ETA sighed and said she could use healing magic to fix it. She asked him to stop. Meanwhile, the news broadcast was reporting about 2 mysterious people who had defeated monsters and disappeared, and the authorities were still searching for the 2 citizens who defeated the monsters. The university student with a mask quickly defeated the monster horde without leaving any trace. Ihan heard all this and told his parents he had to go to school. His mother looked worried and suggested he stay home from school today. Meanwhile, the TV kept airing the government had given people with special abilities the title of superpowers. Their level of mana control was considered extremely high. At that moment, his mother learned a new skill, motherly instinct. This skill increased by 15 points and allowed her to monitor every action of her son while he was at home. She thought the outside world was too dangerous, filled with monsters for her weak child. Meanwhile, Yihan thought silently, "Mom's so overprotective now I can't even do anything peacefully in my room." He turned and said, "Don't worry, Mom. If I see any monsters, I'll run as fast as I can." The TV continued. The government was planning to form a unit gathering high-level mana users, led by superpowers. His mother warned Ihan to be careful. He nodded, promising not to wander around anymore. Then Ihan decided to go outside and walk to school. He complained to ETA that it took forever to get out of the house because his mother was managing him so strictly lately. He couldn't believe his mother had such a skill and didn't understand why it was necessary in this world. ETA shrugged. "Maybe it's necessary to watch over a kid like you." She explained, "They say even among a crowd of penguins, the mother penguin always recognizes her chick's call. And maybe your mom's skill is something like that. It's a survival skill." Of course, Yihan wasn't happy about being watched so closely by his mother, and ETA noticed the angel's thoughtful expression. ETA immediately changed the subject. "What do you think about the government's plan to form a superpower task force?" But Yihan seemed uninterested. "I put myself and my family first." ETA nodded in agreement, because she thought acting independently was better, since it's not restricted. While walking toward school, Yihan suddenly confessed, "You said you want to see the Queen again." As he spoke, his eyes darkened, showing deep thought. ETA was quite disappointed and asked, "Have you lost that girl? Men really just can't help it when they see a girl." But Yihan snapped, "No, I'm not interested in love stuff at all. Since the disaster, I haven't even had time to watch those treasure-hunting movies." Well, overtraining can reduce desire too. You might think it's just a casual comment, but Little Fairy made Yihan blush. He shouted, "I'm not helpless in front of women, okay? But here's the catch." Passers-by thought he was some kind of weirdo because they couldn't see his companion. Without the invisibility superpower, Yihan might have been seriously misunderstood. Ita reassured him, "Even if you scream helplessly in the street, no one will hear you." "Well, then I'm stuck." Yihan gritted his teeth, unsure if it was luck or a curse. He sighed and said he already knew why. ETA nodded. "Right. Enjoying heavenly beauty for 1,000 years, who would be interested in mortals, helpless because of Yihan's overly stubborn mind." He coughed harshly in frustration, but quickly calmed down. He asked, "How can the Queen control mana so well after just one day? I've leveled up but still don't know how to use mana effectively, while the Queen's ability is truly astonishing." ETA thought, "No surprise there. All chosen by God are sent to another world for training. Everyone except you. Your existence seems hidden from the universe, yet Yihan, you can even defeat monsters bare-handed. Actually, you're even more special than all the others." Suddenly, the angel fell silent mid-sentence, as if sensing something. Yihan noticed the change in her expression. He turned to ask, "What's wrong?" Ida said she just sensed the presence of monsters. Recently, a pack of 70 wild dogs and wolves, led by a level 35 diamond wolf. Yihan gaped in disbelief. He shouted at ETA, "You said no high-level monsters would appear in the first few days." But the little angel just crossed her arms and said, "Something strange." I've noticed since yesterday. For some reason, level 10 monsters appeared on the second day after the disaster. Ihan was confused why she hadn't told him yesterday. But ETA replied arrogantly that she didn't want to share her worries with lower beings. Ian thought to himself that ETA was truly different from his beloved Lita. She always acted like a sensible angel, but clearly drew a line between the superior and the inferior. Lita was different. Sometimes a bit silly, but always warm like an older sister to a younger brother. Tears silently welled up in the poor student's eyes because he really missed her. ETA cleared her throat softly to regain attention. She wanted to speak honestly. Ihan looked up at her, his eyes full of questions. Ita now looked serious. She said she believed Earth was in turmoil. Something very strange was happening and she needed his help. Ihan was almost stunned by this. Along with a blank mind, he didn't know what to say at the moment. Just thinking about what was behind those words scared him. ETA continued. We have to hurry. I'll explain on the way. While Yihan asked her to show the way to the monsters, God had once teleported humans during the disaster to another world where they could learn to use mana, but the beasts were left behind on Earth for many years. At first, God thought nothing would happen for decades, but unfortunately, even the Supreme Being can be wrong due to an unknown error. The flow of time on Earth has been severely distorted. 15 years in another world equals 1,000 years here. Ian recalled the time he waited a full millennium hoping everyone would return. And throughout that 1,000 years, Lita was always by his side so much that he hardly noticed how much time had passed. While thinking those memories were suddenly interrupted when ETA pulled him to turn right. But don't pull my hair like that, ETA continued the story. She said that despite the disaster, those beasts had lived for a whole millennium. Something impossible if they lived natural lifespans and the current mutation is unavoidable. Just then, Ihan turned the corner and immediately saw a pack of wolves ahead. ITA finished her explanation just in time. Currently, Earth's monsters are even stronger than those in the other world. Seeing wolves with bloodied mouths, Ihan, you think the Earth and all humanity will soon be doomed. That's why I need your help. ETA believes heaven is trying to restore balance, but it takes time. Until then, we must take responsibility for killing the monsters, and every contribution will be recorded by heaven. Just then, two wolves in front didn't wait for their conversation to finish and lunged at Ihan, hastily putting on armor and drawing his spear, though the movements were still quite difficult, while ETA silently watched the wolves lock their gaze on their prey. Eventually, she had no choice but to nod in acknowledgement that there really was no other option. Meanwhile, Yihan suddenly stepped forward and unexpectedly charged straight at the hungry wolves. The monsters scattered wildly into the air, showing how powerful his strike was. It's hard to believe he could wipe out a dozen wolves with a single blow. The system now notifies you have gained 12 the 904 experience points. Entry for Brown Diamond Wolf level 35 recorded. You have reached level 9. Ihan's strength increased by 4 points. Agility, stamina, and mana all increased by 2. ETA was stunned because every day this guy keeps surprising her with new shocks. She silently thought he must be the type who likes being tortured because no one willingly throws themselves into challenges like that, but whatever she thought, she kept it to herself. Naturally, Ihan strongly denied it because he wasn't some masochist. At that moment, a fierce roar sounded behind him. Ihan reacted quickly and turned to strike the wild dogs, scattering them in many directions. System notification entry for homeless dog level 18 recorded. Meanwhile, Ihan only had a moment to breathe before the battle resumed. Monsters flooded the streets. Their target was to hunt humans. Screams for help echoed from everywhere. Some passers-by tried using fire skills, but nothing happened even though they used their last drop of mana. This was the moment for the masked hero to step up. Ihan clearly saw where help was needed and immediately rushed over. Huge monsters growled, their eyes glowing red, staring at Ihan as if ready to devour him alive. But meanwhile, elsewhere, a monster was close to a middle-aged man. At this moment, the man could only close his eyes and await death. Time passed, but nothing happened. He opened his eyes and saw the wolf was dead, with Yihan standing on it holding a spear. He turned to ask the man if he was injured. Meanwhile, the system kept sending notifications that you must choose a character class to surpass level 10. The collected entries affect the list of available classes. The crowd, meanwhile, began to recognize Yihan. One of them shouted for the masked hero, the man who had saved people near the university. Another nodded and said, "That's right, I remember he disappeared right when the army showed up." Ihan's face looked like a drought-stricken land, unable to say another word. But why do they call me Sunghan Bon? Could it be the combination of Zheng University and Usan Bon, the world's top runner? ETA even teased him that he already has fans. Yet he kept fighting wolves while arguing with his housekeeper. "I don't care about all that nonsense. Fans? What fans?" ETA just quietly smiled, watching him embarrassed. Suddenly, the system sent another notification, but what surprised Ihan was that no matter how many monsters he killed, his level didn't increase. Then he realized the reason was he had to choose a character class to surpass level 10. At the same time, a wolf lifted its head and howled a long, loud howl. Looking at it, he didn't understand what was going on. What the hell was that wolf trying to do? Then, as if out of nowhere, a bunch of monsters appeared surrounding him. It was very clear the howl was to gather its pack. ETA warned seriously that it seemed they were organized while Ihan asked in surprise, "What do you mean? Are they really intelligent?" A thought flashed through your mind that if you retreat, you'll lose the initiative, but if you defend, you'll definitely get bitten. After a moment of thought, you decided that in this situation, attacking is the better choice. Then you unleashed a series of strikes toward the pack of wolves rushing in. A few seconds later, you received a string of notifications from the system. Your experience increased by 2 to 500 points. Suddenly, a large wolf lunged from behind, but an ambush was too easy for our side. Ihan managed to turn around in time and dealt it a well-deserved blow. However, only now did Ihan realize the monsters hadn't decreased at all. You stared at the dense crowd of monsters ahead, as if they kept calling for reinforcements from elsewhere. But Ihan didn't get discouraged. A few more swings of the spear and 2 more monsters fell at your feet. The onlookers watching the battle were amazed, finding it hard to believe that those 5 hungry wolves could be taken down instantly. Then suddenly a fierce growl sounded behind them. Everyone turned around at once and saw a wolf even bigger than the previous ones, its eyes revealing an unmistakable hunger for human flesh. At the monster's feet, a man lay face down on the ground. And Ihan asked ETA, "Is it holding a hostage?" You asked casually, but who would have thought that even ETA thought so too? And it seemed this wasn't the first time it had done that. Ihan sneered cruelly. After all, it didn't matter anymore. You understood that no one else could handle these wolves except yourself right now. The hostage was terrified out of his mind. He kept screaming for help, while the crowd shouted, phones flashing, taking pictures aimed at Ihan, wanting to see how Sunban would handle the monster. ETA reminded your decision will determine whether you are a hero or a villain in everyone's eyes. However, Ihan bluntly said he didn't care about such things and wasn't interested in what others thought of his actions, saying that you rushed forward and attacked the wolf, its head flying off its neck. The hostage was also freed. At the same time, the battle ended as quickly as it began. What? That's how you use your Peter. Immediately, the system notified you received 700 experience points. Data entry level 32. Cunning Wolf has been collected. Nearby, after their leader died, the remaining wolves were no longer as enthusiastic, but of course they still growled threateningly. "If anyone is in danger, I will definitely save them." Ihan turned to everyone and said, "Still, I'm not omnipotent, and I don't think of myself as a hero." Looking at the approaching wolves, you didn't even understand why you said that. At this moment, after analyzing the situation, Ihan concluded the wolves were preparing to attack all at once, because they thought you had lost your weapon. You cracked your fingers lazily, ready to deal with the remaining monsters. A giant wolf charged forward, opening its mouth as if to swallow you whole, but it seemed to have made a big mistake. I'll show you what's the result of 15 years of martial arts training looks like. With a casual swing of your hand, the wolf's teeth were knocked askew. The scene made you suddenly nostalgic for the familiar image of gentle Lita from the past. Ready in stance, you prepared to face any monster daring enough to rush at you. Nearby, ETA looked at Ihan, thinking to herself that he wasn't the kind of person willing to sacrifice himself to save others, because he always made decisions quickly and more rationally than others, so his effectiveness was usually higher. Really have to thank Lita. She raised a very impressive monster. She marveled at Ihan's fighting skills and realized it was all because of his own training. Each strike targeted the opponent's weak spots directly and took them down quickly. The crowd kept murmuring, "So strong, it's unbelievable. Come on, Sunban!" Meanwhile, the wolves wailed with every affectionate swipe Ihan gave them. At this moment, when the horde of monsters lay at his feet, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. He couldn't believe the battle was over, but in that very second, another surprise awaited him. A soldier with a rifle aimed straight at Ihan's head ordered, "Stay still, don't move." This situation stunned Ihan. Turning around, he saw himself surrounded by a military battalion. Numerous gun barrels aimed at him. The angry crowd shouted, "What the hell are you doing with Sunban? He just saved everyone from those monsters." The unit commander, a female soldier, was also flustered by the gossip. She couldn't believe what she heard. Is it really possible for one person to kill that many wolves? A few minutes later, the scene was sealed off with emergency yellow tape. The commander bowed her head, apologizing to Sunbon. Please understand this was just a misunderstanding. We truly didn't intend to shoot, just feared more monsters might appear. Thankfully, everything ended well. She continued pointing as if her mouth couldn't catch up. Do you know there's a whole military unit looking for you? We really want you. But before she finished, a subordinate interrupted, Lieutenant, you should look ahead when speaking. At that moment, no one could see Yihan anymore. The commander stomped and shouted, just as rumored, he runs too fast. But actually, Yihan was still nearby. His stealth technique was so perfect it was like they couldn't see him. Continuing his work, he drew his spear and stabbed a wolf's corpse, thinking he should have brought a knife to skin it. But that would mean first finding a place to sharpen it. Still here after the hunt, the female commander now called out. After a brief search, she found Yihan and shouted loudly. She wondered, are you avoiding the military or this country because you're dissatisfied? But Yihan's shake of the head alarmed her. He said, I even cheered for South Korea at the Olympics and the World Cup. If so, then cooperate with us. But in front of her, Yihan firmly refused again. This plunged the lieutenant deep into disappointment. She was saddened by the refusal, wanting to know why, but he just placed his hand on the wolf's wound, thinking silently that if he agreed, he'd be buried in endless questions and missions, even ETA. Hearing those thoughts, quietly agreed. Hey, ETA, are you reading my mind again? But isn't your thinking all written on your face anyway? Guessing a low-level creature's thoughts isn't hard. Throughout, the female commander stared at him intently. She must have been very puzzled seeing him talk to himself like a crazy guy. But to be fair, ETA completely agreed with Yihan's decision. Better not cooperate with the military or government. Because even if they all gather, they're not true warriors like you. Acting alone will be much more effective. But there was one urgent thing to resolve. Looking at the number of wolves he had killed, he scratched his head in confusion. If I have to handle everything alone like this, it's kind of tiring, isn't it? Time passed again on the street where the monsters appeared. Below, the female commander complained to her subordinates that no one listened to her just because she wore a uniform. Should I just quit my job? Just then, Yihan approached, making the lieutenant's expression change completely. She smiled and asked if he had changed his mind and would work with them. But Yihan only asked if they wanted to buy the wolf carcasses. If so, he'd help them butcher them. He thought silently that selling on the spot would be more profitable than carrying them home. The commander didn't understand at first and had to be reminded by a subordinate, Lieutenant, monster carcasses are very valuable. Yes, we will buy them. She immediately agreed upon hearing the suggestion and didn't forget to ask if he wanted to sell the monostones too. And of course, no way. Looking at the monsters on the ground, the commander wanted to check the quality before buying. She stepped forward and was stunned seeing the bones. Almost everything was intact because he killed each with a single strike. The military had dealt with monsters before, so she knew using guns would ruin the materials and make them useless. Watching Yihan skin the wolf with such skill and speed, she couldn't help but admire him. She took the opportunity to pull out her phone and start recording. She sent the video and immediately called her commander. Did you see the video I just sent? Sunbon's skills are really as rumored. Lieutenant Han Yorong quickly ordered to bring him here. On the other end, a deafening shout echoed through the neighborhood. But he said he wasn't interested, sir. However, the lieutenant's answer was ignored by the command, making Yorong break out in a cold sweat. He even told me to go seduce him. If you're getting paid, you have to work. She then approached Wai Han. By now, he had finished all his tasks with his alluring figure. But Wai Han could guess her thoughts done with the work. Now it's time to pay up, right? No other choice. She sighed and said she would report this transaction to her superiors. Meanwhile, Wai Han was satisfied because everything was finally settled. He looked at his palm, happy with the monostone harvest. Do you think this looks tasty? ETA, it kinda looks like chocolate, doesn't it? The angel shouted a warning. Don't eat them, because if you do, you might go berserk. And if you want the monster's power to take over, go ahead. But Yihan had a hunch someone would eat them and turn into a monster because they looked so delicious. Meanwhile, the female lieutenant had already reported the deal to her superiors and proposed to pay Wai Han 37,000 won in cash. Looking at the glowing suitcase, Yihan couldn't hold back anymore. He wanted to carry it home immediately. ETA thought maybe they didn't want to offend him, so they paid this much. If you finish checking, could we? She thought to herself, since I'm in uniform now, that's probably why. But before I was quite bold, too. However, our Sunbon completely ignored the seduction and turned away. You're very nice, but I'm sorry, what I love is money, honey. Faced with this no-win situation, Wai Han had no choice but to use his secret technique. A device appeared in his hand with a red button pressed. Then the next moment after opening his eyes, the hero had vanished without a word. He left just like back in university. Actually, I'm standing right next to them. I just activated stealth mode. ETA asked, did you distract them to activate stealth again? Where did you find that device? That's a secret. The two left while ETA whispered to Han, maybe more dangerous monsters will appear soon because there's only 1 day left before heaven starts a thorough inspection. The soldiers kept chattering, where did Sunbon go? After getting a safe distance from the scene, Han decided to check his recent achievements. Now I need to choose my first character class. After selecting a list of professions appeared, 1 was copycat, 2 was grappler, 3 was swordsman. The list went on, filling a whole page. Notification. Let's put the assassin class aside for now. I already have enough stealth skills. If I stealth any more, I might actually disappear. ETA responded, maybe because you haven't controlled your aura yet, so the invisibility skill is always active. You don't need to use mana for it. Han was quite hesitant standing before 23 current class choices. ETA, do you have any advice? ETA was a bit surprised since it had been a few days since they entered the Akasa Chronicles, and only 23 classes had opened. If they had more time, there would probably be 30 or 40 classes by now. The angel spoke, then fell silent, thinking carefully about what to suggest to Yihan. Suddenly she said, you could choose the merchant class since you still use a spear, or some class that uses close-range weapons wouldn't be bad either. Like grappler, a wrestling fighter is also good because you're skilled in melee combat. Yihan recalled learning those skills because Lita once suggested it. He also remembered the angel praising his fast progress. Back then, she clapped and said, today you lasted 3 whole minutes in the level 6 challenge. Actually, I learned those skills mostly because I kept getting hit by Lita, right? ETA read his thoughts and said being trained by an angel was an extremely rare opportunity, so he's very lucky. But if I were really lucky, I wouldn't have been left alone on Earth. The angel advised him not to worry too much about choosing a class because when leveling up, he would get to pick a second subclass and even a third subclass. She meant not the main class. Han asked again, I searched online but couldn't find anything about subclasses. Don't waste time on that online stuff. There will never be any information about it on the internet. Did she have a bad experience online? He was curious and thought she must also go online, which is why she was so annoyed. After a moment of thought, he decided to choose the swordsman class and was about to press number 3. But at the last minute, he changed his mind and decided that becoming a cavalryman with a spear was the best choice. ATA wanted to know why he chose that class, and Yihan excitedly explained, damage depends a lot on weapons, so having a weapon is definitely better than fighting barehanded. The angel nodded. Your reasoning is good. If you find better materials later, you'll be able to craft even stronger spears. Ate thought to herself that since she had considered suggesting this profession, Yihan had already made the decision on his own. He will become even stronger than he is now. Suddenly, a new line of information appeared on the screen, startling Yihan. ETA asked what happened, and Yihan said the system suddenly showed a new option in the list. A new line appeared. Blood Spearman. Ita was amazed. A unique profession was created from this change. That means you'll get a unique path right from your first profession. Unique. But what is that? Yihan was a bit confused by what ETA just explained, so she repeated it a second time. This is a class created specifically for one person only, with the path achievements and data you've accumulated converging into that class. ETA confirmed that he should choose this class without hesitation because a unique profession is always the best choice compared to others. It requires more experience to level up, but its value is extremely high. Yihan pressed number 24, Blood Spearman. The decision was confirmed. Immediately, a series of notifications appeared. You have become a Phantom Spearman, increasing damage by 10% when using the Stealth skill. Spear thrust damage increased by 10%. The skill upgrade conditions for Stealth and Spear have been simplified. All accumulated data has been absorbed. Level increased to 18. Strength, stamina, and mana increased by 11. Agility increased by 12. You cannot learn active skills because you cannot control mana. Only now did he realize that it wasn't Blood Spearman, but Phantom Spearman. In Korean, these two words are written and pronounced almost identically. He was annoyed that he had chosen wrong just because of a language mix-up, and even the angel didn't notice the difference. Well, it's just a record. The words are the same, but the context is a bit different. Ihan was about to argue, but fell silent halfway because he sensed something was off. Another information panel appeared before him along with a light beam from the system. Suddenly, the muscles in Ihan's chest and abdomen became strangely full. His biceps visibly grew larger. A tremendous power was rising within his body. Feeling it clearly, he told ETA that his body had changed. The angel explained that because he chose the first class, his body had been enhanced. Besides, once chosen, you can't go back. He looked back at his stats board, unable to believe his eyes because it was many times higher than before. However, what stunned Ihan was that his title hadn't changed yet. Could it be that he would be the loneliest person in the universe forever? ETA asked if he had received any active skills, and Ihan replied no. Hearing that she said most people who choose the first class don't get active skills right away, so don't worry. But given your development speed, I doubt you'll have mana even when you reach the second class. Oh my gosh, no hope left. Isn't that a bad thing? Ihan screamed in despair. That's right. However, if you were an ordinary person, that would be a concern. Ihan's face blossomed while ETA sat comfortably on his head. About to say more, actually, there's nothing to worry about. If you don't get active skills in the first or second class, your profile will accumulate, and when you reach the third class, you will receive an extremely powerful skill. Ihan smiled, thinking that instead of receiving several normal skills, he would get one unique but super overpowered skill. The angel confirmed Ihan's intuition. She thought he should have gotten 2 active skills because he achieved a unique profession, but strangely, that didn't happen. If all records are accumulated before reaching level 3, he should get an extraordinary skill. ETA smiled at her own thought. She believed this little Ihan was the first low-level being worthy of her observation. Now let's go. ETA pulls Ihan's hair in a different direction. Ihan was about to go back for the suitcase of money, but ETA explained that she had hidden it with magic so no one could take it. As an agent, you should start hunting the monsters. Moments later, Ihan looked at his phone and saw there were many other agents besides himself. By the way, agents here mean people who have awakened to their duty, guys. Since many have awakened, ETA advised Ihan he doesn't have to do everything alone. Just hunt monsters in your own area. Ihan wondered if the queen had become an agent. And of course, someone so talented couldn't stay out of it. ETA said this is a mission from the heavenly realm. If you perform better than the other agents, your reward will increase according to your contribution. What more could I ask for missions like this suit me perfectly? Ihan dashed down the street until ETA reminded him to look back at his phone. His expression changed completely when he saw a post on the monster hunting forum. Someone mentioned a tiger living on Mount Buchan, but another anonymous commenter said bears were scarier. The tiger wasn't harmed even after the army kept shooting at it non-stop. He rushed quickly to the mentioned location. Here, everyone's eyes were filled with fear. Right in the middle of the street stood a giant bear with fiery, angry eyes. Meanwhile, people panicked and ran off in the opposite direction. Everyone believed this monster was undefeatable, but Ihan smiled mysteriously, muttering that today he might get some bear honey. ETA said if he had poison resistance skills, he should definitely learn them if given the chance. Miss, I'm just saying that casually, she said. Ihan's helpless look showed how this fairy could always find fault with everything. As for the huge, terrifying bear, it looked down at its prey with red, bloodshot eyes from above. Suddenly, rocks fell from a nearby building onto Ihan's head, leaving him confused about what was happening. He wondered if the army had just launched a missile causing this scene. Atta pointed to the sky, signaling him to look up. The bear roared wildly, destroying everything in front of it. This time, the army arrived in time, unlike before. The lieutenant ordered his subordinates to open fire on the giant bear. All the soldiers present fired simultaneously, but the bullets bounced off its skin without leaving a scratch. They realized their weapons were completely useless. How can we fight this bear? On the 3rd day after the catastrophe, the bear easily crushed vehicles. Everywhere it passed, everything was destroyed. The lieutenant noticed that the bear was changing direction. Everyone get out of the way! The order to retreat was given. Someone shouted, "Where are the superpowered users the government requested?" Nearby ETA commented that human architecture wasn't sturdy at all, easily destroyed by a level 2 monster. Ihan asked her to have more sympathy for humanity, because when people were trained in the other world, all the buildings and weapons here were legacies from the old world. No one had time to prepare for the current situation. At this moment, the bear roared as if to say no one here could stop it. Ihan put on his familiar mask and muttered that the bear seemed to be quite happy. ETA asked Ihan what he planned to do, but said it was best to act quickly before this place turned to rubble. I'm just timing myself." As soon as he finished speaking, he entered combat mode. A red mana aura flared around him and the system announced the stealth skill activated. Power increased by 10% with another 10% from his usual abilities. The bear stood with its back to Yihan, but still sensed the imminent danger. He leapt from the air, intending to finish the monster with the first strike. The bear roared instinctively and began to turn around. ETA exclaimed a warning that only when interacting with it should he be visible. Before that, no one could detect him, not even the powerful mana swirling around the spear tip. Yihan's main target was the giant bear, and then a single strike pierced through the head of the level 2 monster. The army saw nothing but were stunned by the attack's result. Cheers began rising from the crowd. Sunbon appeared, a nickname Yihan felt was now permanently attached to him. When he landed and looked at the prey, he realized one strike wasn't enough to kill it, which made sense, since this was a level 2 monster. Yihan decided to appear before everyone and told the army if they wanted to live, they should run immediately. While the soldiers were stunned, he continued saying if they didn't want to live, they could stay. At that moment, the monster swung its claws at a nearby building, sending debris flying toward the civilians. This time, the bear moved on all fours and everyone started running in panic. Of course, the goal was just to stay alive. It froze, staring in a certain direction. That's when Yihan seized the moment and appeared right in front of the monster. He raised his sharp claw to counterattack, ready to land Yihan flat on the ground. He spun in midair and shouted loudly, "Don't even dream of getting close to the bear." Then he thrust his spear into its claw. ETA sat on his head, laughing with delight. It was really fun. It was like she was riding a roller coaster. Back to the battle. The injured claw didn't cause much damage, but it drove the bear mad. Yihan had returned to stealth mode at this point. This was the chance to strike the finishing blow. The only worry was whether his spear could withstand the next attack. In a flash, his mind went back to training with Lita. She always reminded him not to think about anything else when attacking. Focus all your energy on one point. Back then, Yihan only feared that if he slipped up, someone else might get hurt, but that was beyond his control. Only when you touch a single hair on me do you need to worry about that. Got it, Lita. Who do you think I am? If I fought you, I'd be worried someone would get hurt. Saying that, he charged in to strike sneakily, but there was a catch. Just as expected with the light flick, Yihan fell to the ground as usual. The next memory was Lita praising him for succeeding. He had just focused all his energy on one point, just as he was taught. Yihan's face was full of surprise as he looked up while Lita twirled her long blonde hair between her fingers. She smiled and said he had just cut her hair with that punch, while fighting the giant bear. He thought again of Lita, the beautiful goddess he couldn't help but miss. Yihan recalled that was the only time he ever touched Lita. Now it was time to focus all his energy on one concentrated point. Yihan flew forward at lightning speed toward the bear. His long, sharp spear was driving down toward the monster's head. The soldiers watching the battle between the bear and the invisible enemy noticed the monster suddenly stopped. They wondered if it was really dead. But then the bear let out a fierce roar. Clearly, enduring extreme pain made it even angrier. Unfortunately, that was all that was left of it. The bear collapsed after the roar. At the same time, the system sent a notification: you have gained 154 to 928 experience points. Reached level 23, strength +8, agility +7, stamina and mana +5. Yihan also received level 54 records of the large brown bear and a new title called One Hit Kill. Increases critical hit chance by 10%. Yihan has learned the critical strike skill, focusing attacks on enemy weak points to increase critical hit chance. Ite whispered in his ear, "You took it down with just 3 hits without any skills." Huh. "I know you're praising me, but give me a real compliment, will you, lady?" Then he looked at his spear, still perfectly intact. Silently, he thought of himself as quite the skilled craftsman. Standing in front of the bear, it was time to get down to the main task. Suddenly, he realized the bear had shrunk and thought it must have a giant transformation skill, and that ability disappeared upon death. But whatever, just focus on the main job. He didn't forget to brag to ETA that he had just learned a new skill, Critical Strike. This skill works very well combined with stealth and dissection. Just then, a black car sped over and braked sharply. The back door opened. A pair of legs with blue shoes stepped out hurriedly. A voice said, "We're here. Leave everything here to us." Yihan and ETA turned around, surprised to see the newcomers. It seemed that other power users had arrived to deal with the level 2 monster. A group of 5 approached the military. Silence fell over everyone. One of them asked suspiciously, "So you're saying the monster's already been eliminated?" Hearing that, some in the group looked disappointed. "I heard it's a level 2 monster. I thought I'd get to move around a bit, but it's really boring." At that time, everyone was curious to find out who had defeated that giant bear. Suddenly, someone in the group recognized Yihan. He turned toward the direction where Yihan was busy looting, his face still hidden behind the mask. Yihan realized he had been spotted. Surprised, he wondered how those people could see him. Ida explained that the person wasn't actually looking at him but at the bear's corpse. It was just that Ihan was standing nearby and caught their attention. They recognized the stranger as the recently famous Sunbon. That nickname sure seems to stick with him for life. The black-haired guy muttered irritably, saying that this guy defeated the bear all by himself. That can't be true, especially since it's only the third day after the great disaster. Meanwhile, the others crowded around Ihan, excited to learn more about the masked hero. You're really strong. Did you find a hidden dungeon or something like that? Ian didn't want to talk and just stayed silent. An introvert by nature, he always tries to minimize interaction with others. The black-haired guy got angry at that attitude, his head starting to steam. When someone asks you something, you have to answer. Maybe he just doesn't want to talk to us, someone in the group advised. Contrary to everyone else, a girl in the group thought the guy was cool, like a hero from a manga. The group leader asked the military if there was anything else they needed help with here. Do you need any more help? The soldier replied that other areas still need support. If possible, please come there to reinforce. Ihan heard everything and thought to himself that someone who talks so comfortably with people he just met must be an extrovert. If I tried that, I'd probably fail right from the start, let alone the later parts. At that moment, footsteps approached. It was the group leader. He spoke to Ihan niece to meet you. My name is Zujun. Ihan was quite confused. Was he going to shake his hand? Why would he do that? He seemed to understand that Ihan was socially shy. Dujun continued. When I saw you take down that bear, I knew you were already ahead of me from this very first mission. But I will catch up to you soon. Remember my name. Ihan asked back. What are you going to do to surpass me? Zujun was surprised by the question, stunned for a moment before answering. In a world where strength symbolizes rank, it's not hard to know who's the strongest. I believe one day I'll be at the top of the leaderboard. It was Ihan's turn. He raised his head speechless at the other's reasoning. Such a ridiculous reason. Does this guy want to be a hero or a Superman or what? After a few seconds, Ihan asked, why do you have to compete like that? Can't you improve without others? If you want to grow, focus on training yourself. Train at home or hit a punching bag if you want. Why drag others into it? If you want to surpass something, you have to surpass yourself first. Thus, Ihan lectured him. Do you know I've trained for thousands of years and still don't have enough confidence to show off like that? And you just sit around and daydream about being the strongest. That's really ridiculous. Well, if you had courage, you'd say that. But for now, I only dare think it in my head, Ihan said, which left ETA speechless and totally lost for words. At this moment, Ihan looked around and realized everyone had left. He touched his super cool mask and said to the angel, What the hell did you just say? I'm totally fine, really, there's no one else here. This old man is the only one bold enough to confidently show his personality. Finally, instead of getting lots of magic stones like usual, Ihan was left with just a few bear skins. Suddenly, a soldier approached Ihan and called him Lord Sunbon. Before even hearing the question, Ihan immediately replied, They're all mine. Actually, I didn't mean that. I have another proposal for you. The soldier quickly started explaining, waving his hands non-stop. Basically, he wants Ihan to install a support app. If you install the program I just mentioned, you'll be able to track the locations of monsters that have appeared on the city map. It will be very useful for hunting them. Ihan wondered, Isn't that a national secret? But the soldier replied, For the safety of the people, we hope at least this will help minimize damage caused by monsters. Hearing this, you said nothing more and turned to leave, leaving the two soldiers in silence as they watched your figure walk away. A subordinate asked the commander, Should we really let someone like that roam free? Should we force or somehow coerce him into cooperating? Do you really think someone who can take down a level 2 monster in just 3 moves will obey our orders? I've seen a fake superpower in another world rule an entire country alone, and a monster that could completely destroy that nation. I believe that young man will only grow stronger. If we try to impose our will on him, we'll only suffer a disastrous failure. This world no longer operates by the old rules. This is an era where even a single person can bring down governments and armies. The subordinate was stunned by the lieutenant's speech. You really are wise, sir. The commander, annoyed, snapped back. Does this fool even know I studied at Seoul University? Meanwhile, Yihan and ETA had already traveled some distance. ETA told him that the soldier was truly intelligent. It seemed like he had a lot of experience. I don't know, I think he just overestimates me, Yihan replied. But ETA thought the opposite because if the army forced Yihan to cooperate by force, he would definitely wipe out the entire unit just for disobeying orders. Now the military no longer has control over Yihan. The soldier, quickly realizing this and choosing to propose cooperation instead of coercion, was the best choice for both sides. It seemed that Yihan himself hadn't yet realized how strong and valuable he was to the current world. Meanwhile, Yihan was staring intently at his phone screen, then suddenly exclaimed, "ETA, look at this." He pointed to the red dots. 3 monsters had just appeared at the same time. "What do we do now?" ETA replied bluntly. "Why think when we can just kill all 3? That's what I like to hear. Let's fight." Using the map on the phone, they quickly headed to the first monster's location, an abandoned building. The first monster was a giant rat. Yihan easily and quickly took it down. Next was a giant praying mantis blocking their path. Finally, a large black bird. Yihan used his spear and gave it a hole right through its body. After all that, Yihan still didn't understand why his level remained at 24 after defeating all 3. A notification appeared in front of him. "Because these monsters are much weaker compared to the wolves and brown bears you've defeated before," ETA explained. "Your unique profession requires a much higher amount of experience than usual. If it were a normal profession, you'd probably be level 30 by now." However, Yihan wasn't discouraged, because he found many valuable items to sell back to the military. Now his life was so wealthy that he wondered if he should just go buy his own house. But ETA thought this guy uses his brain very inefficiently. What if they intentionally track his identity through financial records? Spending money like that is basically shouting to the world, "Sunbon is me." She added just this once as a special reward. "I will erase the memories of everyone involved. But won't that mean everyone will forget the guy who's supposed to be in hiding like me?" The next morning, just like every day, Yihan woke up in his own bed. As soon as he opened his eyes, he immediately activated the system to check his stats and instantly received a message. Connection to the other world has been restored. From now on, you can summon an entity in the world you were once called to and complete missions to earn appropriate rewards. The sudden news made his hands tremble. "The world I was once summoned to. Doesn't this mean I'm being abandoned again?" You show the screen to ETA and snap. "What is this? The monsters on Earth are getting stronger every day. So I'm just thinking of ways to keep everyone safe." "Oh, you mean sending everyone to the other world to level up? Safer, right?" Sadly, that's correct. Yihan couldn't hold back and shouted, "What about me? While everyone else goes to the other world, I'm staying here." "Oh, don't cry so loudly. You were alone from the start. So what's the difference now?" Yihan held his head in despair, thinking, even so, my mom will definitely ask why I didn't go to the other world. Just tell her there's nothing to learn there, so I didn't go. That answer actually sounds pretty good, hehe. But to be honest, I feel sorry for your case, yet sadly I'm not the one deciding this fate. Yihan calmed down and replied, I know. I guess I can't go to the other world. But then you hear this, it's not impossible. If you become a supreme being, you'll have a chance. If you become the highest being, you can not only enter the other world, but even set foot in heaven. Then you'll be on the same level as us, the angels. Yihan was shocked by this news because if he became a supreme being, he could meet Lita again, right? The angel thought bitterly, as if they were lovers separated by distance. Lita's mind was buzzing with all kinds of thoughts. Finally, she realized she was playing the mediator between two lovers, something she really disliked, because she herself had no one to love. With a fiery head, ETA shouted, train harder and focus to become a supreme being. Only then can you enter the other world and meet the one you love again. While Yihan asked how long it would take, and he was told the process would take less than 1,000 years. He breathed a sigh of relief. This news lifted his spirits because at least he had something to look forward to. When entering the kitchen for breakfast with his parents, Yihan heard an emergency news report on TV. The anchor announced that martial law had been declared nationwide. This news stunned Yihan. His silent war against the monsters was no longer just his own business. His mom added, "It seems not only our country but the whole world has declared martial law due to the appearance of dangerous monsters. The global government has no other choice. All schools and businesses have been shut down. The military is planning to wipe out all the monsters. At least they're trying to minimize the number of people on the streets." Yihan took a sip of morning tea, thinking even the government has admitted the world can't go back to the way it was. He decided it was time to have a straightforward talk with his parents. His parents turned and said, "You two should go to the other world." His mom was about to object, but before she could speak, his dad interrupted. "I was there for 15 years and never made it past level 2, so why go back? But from now on, the monsters won't stop and we need to get stronger. And at least that place is safer than Earth right now." Your father didn't say anything, but just nodded. "Dad understands now. If that's what you think, I'll see you again soon. Remember to never give up and do your best until the very end." As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished without another word. Your mother, however, isn't so quick to give up. She said she's happy if you try, but don't be too blind about it. Yihan quickly changed the subject, praising today's breakfast, but then a sentence from his mother stunned him. "That masked hunter, is you right?" Ihan asked in shock. "How did you know?" But she just smiled. How could a mother not recognize her own child? She recognized you right away when she saw you on TV, even with the mask and different clothes. Only then did Yihan truly realize his mother's remarkably special skills. The penguin skill really lives up to its reputation. Unable to hold back, he shared with his mother that the world has forgotten him and was gently comforted by her. "Mom doesn't know why you're so strong, but she's still worried about you, so be careful. I know you understand how scary those monsters are, right? And I almost forgot, there's something even scarier than monsters humans. There will definitely be many bad people out there, and you should be cautious around them." Ihan smiled. He was very happy to have this conversation with his mother. Then his mother stood up. "It's good to see you had breakfast. Now I have to go. Don't do anything too dangerous." Ihan waved goodbye to his mother, telling her to take care. When she disappeared into another dimension, he looked around the empty kitchen. His gaze stopped at the sink filled with 8 dirty dishes. At least Mom should have washed those 8 before leaving, right? He put on gloves and began washing each dish while his thoughts stirred with mixed feelings. His parents had gone into another world to gain experience. Though he couldn't go with them, there was still much to do here. Just then, ETA's voice interrupted his thoughts. "I have to go to the celestial realm for a moment to claim a mission reward," and Yihan asked her to buy ice cream on her way back. Ita flew off somewhat surprised by the strange request. Yihan stood by the window watching her go, feeling relieved to finally be alone. He turned on the lights. It was known that last night Yihan bought a small room with cash to set up a private workshop, and although it lacked full tools and equipment, he wanted to start experimenting immediately. If not handled soon, the skin and bones would quickly decompose. He planned to use metal, but due to a lack of materials, he had to improvise with what he had. This amount of material should be enough to treat the bones, Yihan thought. But processing takes too long. He wondered when he would finish the gear. Just then, Wytha's voice rang out. "You can use magic, so why are you back so quickly? Did you buy the ice cream?" But when he saw the angel's expression, his smile faded. Yihan looked at the figure opposite him in alarm. ETA had now revealed her true form and stepped directly toward Yihan, arms crossed, eyes full of irritation. Yihan shouted, questioning. "Could it be you? Also know how to use magic to enlarge things? Do you think I am who I've always used magic to shrink things? Let's just forget about that for now quickly. Hold out your hand for the reward." Yihan wiped his dirty hands on his shirt, still a bit dazed, and reached out to shake ETA's hand. When shaking the angel's hand, a thought flashed through his mind. ETA's hand was cold, but very smooth. At that moment, a notification appeared showing the first mission from the Celestial Realm Blade was completed. All stats increased by 1, and he received a special reward, the Eternal Flame. Yihan immediately asked what it was, but ETA just smiled and remained silent. Actually, she was just trying to add a little drama for him. Then she pointed to the fireplace and told him to look. Yihan exclaimed when he saw the fire blazing in the hearth, wondering, "I didn't even light it, so why is it burning?" ETA quickly explained that the eternal flame is a fire that never goes out and always keeps growing. "This is the precious flame of the celestial realm." Yihan cheered, amazing and immortal flame, exactly what he needed. Ate nodded, saying she knew. Lita had specially instructed her carefully about this. She recalled when Lita begged her to bring the gift down to Yihan carrying a pile as if ETA were a porter. She muttered that in heaven Lita takes good care of you. Yihan was amazed to learn it was all sent by Lita, while ETA looked visibly annoyed. It's true that those couples should be sent to hell, but Yihan ignored her and kept admiring the gifts from heaven, thinking quietly that Lita really knows him well. At that moment, ETA added that she brought more good news. Since he can't go to another world, heaven assigned him a second mission. The angel revealed that from now on, Yihan's task is to create dungeons right here on Earth. Yihan was stunned. What the heck is creating dungeons? A flood of questions overwhelmed him, leaving Yihan frozen for several seconds. Finally, Yihan reluctantly said, "Well, it sounds interesting, but sorry, I don't think I can do it. I only know how to cook ramen." She ate it, so there's no way she can just say no like that. ETA raised a finger and said, "This is an order from heaven. The mission has been assigned, so he must create the dungeons." Yihan thought for a moment about how to approach the mission, but the next second he shouted as he suddenly realized something. "This is your job, not mine." ETA just muttered that actually it's for Earth, so saying it's for him isn't wrong, right? Hearing that, Yihan got even more annoyed. "Heaven told me to just wait 15, but it dragged on for 1,000 years. They also said that at the start of the apocalypse, the monsters would be weak, but that turned out to be a lie. In short, nothing went according to your plan at all. Meanwhile, ETA tried to explain that when God stopped time on Earth, it affected all living creatures. They developed immunity to that power, causing the dungeons to start functioning differently than originally intended. Of course, Yihan couldn't calm down with just that shallow explanation. He shouted, "Is that all the explanation you have for what's happening here?" So the two of them kept arguing. Yihan thought those called heaven were all frauds, while ETA believed this was good for him. For thousands of years, he had honed his skills, especially his blacksmithing, which had reached a divine level. Besides the angels, he was the only one who could create dungeons. Yihan obviously didn't believe that was true and didn't want anything to do with it. But then he realized ETA had just praised him a lot. It was probably just to dump a ton of work on his shoulders, thinking that he didn't hesitate to point directly at the sly woman in front of him. "You're trying to trick me into working, aren't you?" But ETA calmly replied that this is a win-win situation. "We complete the goal, and you get the rewards from the mission. What happens if I don't do anything?" In response, ETA said then the monsters wouldn't be drawn to the dungeons, and humanity would have to live in a dangerous, wild environment. ETA presented the design plans and the materials. If you need Hacanium Pessinum and El Hadra, those are 3 types of materials only used by high-level creatures. They haven't appeared on Earth yet. Yihan was stunned by the enormous size and rarity of these gems. Inside the next gift were completely new tools of the highest quality. Seeing them, his mood at home changed completely, excited to own such premium equipment. "So I can use them all as much as I want, really probably just borrowing them temporarily. After finishing the job, you have to return them." Although I don't like this and don't understand how tools alone can create dungeons, Yihan made up his mind. He told himself it's probably just digging the ground, so it can't be that hard. But before that thought ended, ETA raised her hand, telling him to stop. She explained he only needed to craft magical tools that attract the monster's attention. From there, it would change the surrounding terrain and create the dungeon. A design appeared. He must complete a destructive trap based on this. Also, ETA emphasized this is not an easy task. After a moment of silence, Yihan finally said, "Just looking at it, I know it's going to be very difficult," but then he smiled confidently. "As for the mission reward, it's best if you start preparing now." ETA replied to Yihan, "I will prepare a reward that will leave you stunned." Without hesitation, he immediately dove into the work. The first magic stone ETA gave him was immediately thrown into the fire. A voice echoed in his mind, "Just use the eternal flame. Every magic stone can be refined." He picked up the next gem with special claws and put it in the furnace. Very quickly, a miracle happened. The flames flared up fiercely as soon as the magic stone was placed inside. After heating the stones, Yihan began to forge with a hammer. The temperature around the furnace was extremely high and sweat dripped all over his body. ETA nearby watched every move of Yihan in amazement. A thought rang in her mind. If Yihan wasn't a merchant, maybe I'd recommend him to be a blacksmith. This Yihan can really create weapons that challenge even gods. Later, Yihan sighed in relief as the first blank was finished, but he still felt quite nervous. His hands kept following the instructions without knowing if he'd made a mistake. ETA added that if it didn't work, he could melt it down and try again. It would just take a bit more time. Yihan focused even more now. He never took his eyes off his hands, fully devoted to the task of forging the dungeon as entrusted by the gods. Now ETA understood Lita's feelings over the past 1,000 years. She wondered why a high-ranking angel like Lita cared about an ordinary human. It turned out that this was exactly how she felt. Suddenly ahead, Yihan slammed his hand down on the table and declared loudly, "Finally done." What made ETA unable to believe her ears was how could such a difficult task be completed so quickly? A notification appeared. "You have awakened the blacksmith profession to the maximum level. You have received the title of Legendary Creator. Crafting efficiency for all activities increased by 20%. ETA was still stunned because for her time had passed too fast. She asked suspiciously, "Already finished?" Yihan replied, annoyed at her doubt. "What do you mean by finished? It's been 5 hours already." The angel thought to herself, "I really sat here watching him work for 5 hours straight. It made me forget about the time, but indeed, for this kind of work, 5 hours is very fast." Frustrated, Yihan threw the product to her to inspect herself. ETA turned the cube in her hands with a look of disbelief. It was so perfect it seemed impossible for a human to have made it. "Well, I admit defeat." ETA said it met certain standards, but that dry comment made Yihan very satisfied. After a moment of silence, ETA said it was time to use the crafted item. "I'll call the other angels to help," which left Yihan stunned, speechless. The angel friends. Is Lita among them? And as always, the answer was no. After a while, ETA returned with a halo of mystical light surrounding her head. I know this. It's the radiance I used to see when I was little. But putting that aside now, the other angels had appeared along with ETA's request. They couldn't believe a human could create a destruction trap. It even finished faster than expected. Of course, what made them believe was Yihan, because its scent didn't resemble the heavens at all. Meanwhile, Yihan thought angels really are all beautiful. When ETA was little, he didn't notice, but now at her real size, he could see she was truly beautiful. On the other side, ETA clapped her hands, signaling Yihan to hurry. We don't have much time. Start the work as soon as possible. Then she turned to Yihan and instructed, You just need to focus all your mind on completing and activating the destruction trap. The rest will be handled by the 3 angels. The 3 then placed their hands on Yihan and began to channel magical power. A brilliant, powerful golden energy radiated from their interaction. Suddenly, Yihan shouted. He felt an invisible force pressing down on him, a terrifying pressure as if mana was pushing down from all directions. Only then did Yihan truly feel how terrifying the power of high-level beings really was. An angel smiled and asked, Can't you handle it? Of course, Yihan still believes he can overcome it. He tried to focus on the deadly trap he had created. Used to lure the monsters, tricking them to enter and never come out again. It's the most magical spell for creatures that have lived thousands of years in loneliness. Suddenly, Yihan's eyes snapped open. He realized he had to find a way to soothe the loneliness of these pitiful, forgotten beings. The pressure from the angels remained, but now he had gradually gotten used to that divine energy. An angel thought silently he's really strong, at least for a lowly creature. Another angel cried out, If I'm not mistaken, soon we'll be surpassed. This is humiliating. How could such an interesting person even be born? The third angel spoke from outside, looking in. The whole building was now bathed in brilliant light. A notification appeared. You have completed crafting the Earth colony's deadly trap. The mana crafting skill has been upgraded to level 7, and the item quality has improved. Yihan looked up at the unbelievable product. I actually did it. No way he could succeed on the first try. The angels kept commenting. Some were surprised, while others couldn't believe their eyes. I thought he had to try at least 10 times. Yet now there are even alpha and beta options. ETA explained to Yihan that they were talking about extra sub-options added when crafting deadly traps. Effects that appear randomly depending on luck materials and the crafter's ability. You're amazing now. Know that, angels? You're seen differently now. And now it's time to set the trap. Ite invited Yihan to come along if he wanted to observe. Of course, Yihan immediately agreed. So the 4 flew over the ruined buildings one by one. They glided through the air with their wings carrying Yihan along. Exclamation, in this world it's no different than the apocalypse. ETA, do we need to use invisibility magic on Yihan? Someone asked ETA, but she thought it wasn't necessary. As long as he's zero threat, he will never be detected. Indeed, the monsters on the street showed no reaction to Yihan. Of course, because Yihan is someone even God wouldn't detect. Do you guys think I'm a toy? Yihan thought irritably, but had no other choice. Just wait after this mission, I won't talk to you guys anymore. Finally, the towering mountains outside the city appeared, and the angels flew straight to the empty land where they planned to set the dungeon. ETA held the trap in her hands throughout the journey. Then she tossed it into the air. The mana orb hovered, illuminating the whole area. It stayed like that for a while before disappearing before everyone's eyes. While Yihan still didn't understand where it went, an angel explained everything was proceeding smoothly. Loud noises caused tremors somewhere in the city. Soldiers with guns looked confused. They looked ahead and noticed the giant rat they were trying to attack suddenly behaving strangely. It no longer destroyed things as before. It acted as if attracted by something. Giant ants everywhere behaved similarly. They started moving toward the rat's gaze. Meanwhile, everyone looked up at the sky covered by wings of giant birds flocking in one direction. All the mutated creatures that had caused chaos on the streets now obediently entered the trap Yihan created, reluctantly admitting that guy really has a talent for making traps. Ida didn't care much about those empty compliments. She announced that all other dungeons had been activated as well. Ian wondered how other dungeons she previously said they couldn't be used anymore. E.T. explained they had used magic to transform the energy. After all, regeneration or restoration is the most environmentally friendly method. Those two seem pretty close, huh? The blue-haired angel interrupted the conversation, turning the two against each other. They both denied at the same time, saying it wasn't like she thought. Suddenly, Yihan was drawn to what was happening among the monsters. Even after living thousands of years on Earth, they still obediently walked into the destructive trap, just as God and the angels intended. He realized that the divine power of God was absolute, something that could transport all humanity to another world in an instant. And of course, the monsters couldn't resist that power. In the end, humanity was just a pawn dancing in the palm of the supreme god, and being left behind was simply a mistake in 1,000 years of effort. Ihan realized that without Lita, he might have gone insane from loneliness over the 1,000 years. But now, without Lita by his side, he wanted to become stronger. Strong enough that no force could control him. The next day, he calmly sat at home eating a sandwich and listening to the news. Reports said the reason monsters suddenly moved last night was because dungeons were activated in many places around the world. Dungeons appeared not only in Seoul, but throughout Korea, Japan, and even some areas in China. Suddenly, he remembered his parents and wondered when they would return. Ian felt a bit sad because he couldn't imagine how his parents were doing in another world. But since they had a lot of experience living in society, he was sure they could manage, he quietly thought. ETA flew over to report it seems the dungeons are operating stably and haven't malfunctioned yet. Good job, Ihan. But I remember you said I still have to make 27 more traps, right? So why did the angels leave when I could start making them right now? ETA said creating a destructive trap requires a huge amount of mana, so the angels need a few days to recover. You're not the only group of angels, right? Like, why not send Lita here to work so it's faster? ETA is quite familiar with that guy's reputation. Actually, not all angels have as much free time as you think. Lita took on extra work to help you, so now she's very busy. She probably won't be able to appear on Earth for a while. Ihan was disappointed, thinking that meant Lita really couldn't come. When the two went outside, Ihan asked why she became huge when creating a dungeon, but was small now. ETA explained that because she's an angel when performing other tasks, she needs to appear as an angel. Being this size is ideal for supporting him. They chatted like that, and after a while they arrived at the workshop. Ian decided to make a few more traps for the next day. Meanwhile, ETA looked curiously at the spoils from Ihan's previous battles. She said because his results yesterday were perfect, she would give him a small gift as a reward. With it, he probably wouldn't have much time left to make traps anymore. Ihan scratched his head. You mean giving me more Hacanium? Actually, that metal is pretty good. Yeah, keep dreaming in broad daylight. With ETA's wave, the pile of beast parts on the table began to change. ETA explained she was drying and sterilizing the monster skins Ihan collected while hunting. It would be done in a second. Ihan gaped in surprise. Truly top-tier angel magic. This quality feels like it has just been upgraded. We can make gloves and boots from it. He got to work immediately. The blazing fire on the table was the skin being cut into pieces for upcoming items. First, the gloves made from fierce wolf leather were finished a rare grade item, with 600 armor points and 700 attack points. Next were the boots of the same type with 550 armor points, 750 attack points, and an option for heat resistance. Great. This one has heat resistance, so you won't get overheated and unable to move while wearing armor. ETA asked when he learned the reinforcement technique, because those extra stats are no joke. Well, for manual labor, you just need to know how to do it and practice diligently. Continuing with the bear hide on the table, he planned to craft armor from it. Meanwhile, ETA stood nearby watching attentively. A sly smile spread across her lips. The sun was slowly setting behind the mountain on the horizon. Evening was approaching. ETA yawned and said, "So another day is over." Walking closer to Ihan, she suggested he rest, but he didn't respond because his mind was fully focused on the task. "Almost done, I don't feel tired at all." Ian then said that staying up all night wouldn't affect his superhuman stamina anyway. Ada laughed at this workmate, but before she could finish, Ihan declared he was done. A sturdy bare leather armor was completed with a unique rank. Armor 2, 100 points. Strength 850 points. This is second-tier brown bear leather crafted with the strongest master-level tanning technique in its category, even resistant to bites from high-level monsters. Atta was stunned by the masterpiece, while Ihan explained there were still a few final steps left. He reached for the bear's claws and bones to reinforce the armor. All remaining power from the bear bones transferred to the armor, significantly boosting its stats. Ian received a notification that his mana crafting skill had reached level 8. He checked and realized the armor also had a hidden function. ETA wasn't too surprised. "I think I can guess its function from the name." She reached out to attack, and sharp spikes automatically popped out from the armor in counterattack. The armor has an automatic counterattack function when attacked. Ian laughed excitedly, imagining himself turning into a porcupine. A porcupine that even tigers would run from, while ETA recalled the bracelet Ihan had once crafted also had hidden praying mantis blades inside. She wondered why Ihan always hid sharp spikes in his gear and then suddenly unleashed them. Ihan was silent for a moment before cryptically asking, "So that's what you care about?" ETA's mind lit up. "I only asked a random question, so why is the atmosphere like this?" She asked if there was a special reason like a porcupine having hurt his parents before. "But my parents are fine," he said. Ihan pointed to his chest and declared that's the dream of a real man. The dream to create something special. Wow, that's meaningful as your empty head. Such a silly story and you make that face? Putting that aside, ETA focused on the armor. Anyway, this time it seems to have both alpha and beta options. Ihan replied that there were still some leftover bones, so he would make a knife to handle them. Because using a spear to dissect a monster corpse was a bit difficult. Very quickly, another masterpiece from Ihan was born. A knife made from bear bones of rare grade. Attack power 500 points. Durability 450 points. Next was a wolf skull mask with 600 armor and 660 durability. ETA asked in amazement if this monster had a lot of mana when it was alive. So many stats. Ihan put on all the equipment. It really looked pretty cool, at least to Ihan. He stepped in front of the mirror and said to ETA, "I look great with the mask on, don't I?" But ETA was shocked and shouted, "What the hell did you do to that mask? Your presence weakens completely when you wear it. That's unbelievable." Suddenly, they both heard a strange sound. "What's that sound? Is something happening outside?" Ihan asked, and ETA said it seemed like someone was fighting a monster. Hearing that, Ihan immediately took off the mask, shocked. "There's another monster." The battle was happening inside the inner area where a giant level 2 monster suddenly appeared. People still inside the buildings were advised to evacuate to another world immediately. Ita softly exclaimed in surprise, "There are still monsters not entering the dungeon." Ihan worriedly prayed, "Please don't be stronger than that giant brown bear before." "Wait, are you scared now? You don't look like your usual self at all." Actually, it's not that this guy is afraid to fight. Ihan is worried that if it's stronger than that bear, he'll have to skin it to make a new armor. Handling monster corpses is even scarier than fighting. You pull out the old spear and examine it carefully, telling ETA it probably needs repairs before heading to the battlefield. After reinforcing, the steel spear is now top quality, with 100 attack power, 715 durability, plus an option to increase critical hit rate by 20%. A feat you achieved without using any mana at all. Ian is very pleased that just a few tweaks increased the attack power by 300 points. You plan to refine a few other things, but ETA stops you saying it's time to hunt. Ihan sighs, thinking this angel can be really annoying sometimes. As they step outside, they see the heavy destruction the city has suffered. People are rushing the opposite way to escape danger, but only Han charges straight into it. Ita stands beside him, pointing toward the emerging monster. A giant leopard with blazing red eyes is spreading terror across the city, roaring fiercely and swiping its claws at military helicopters. Soldiers keep shouting that anti-tank missiles are useless. The senior commander orders everyone who has reached level 2 to rush in and use melee knives against it. Seeing the army's actions, Han wonders if besides soldiers, those who have reached level 2 also have to fight. But before he gets an answer nearby, a level 2 soldier complains that it's easier to gain experience points in the other world. Facing strong monsters here on Earth is just too much. They're right. The leopard's claw sweep sends more than 10 people flying into the air. Even level 2 warriors can't easily overcome monsters of the same level. But Han has no intention of giving up this place. He's not the type to sacrifice himself for others, but he also doesn't want to abandon them. If it takes just a little more effort to save someone, he'll do it. That thought flashes through his mind as Han dashes forward so fast it's hard to see with the naked eye. He cuts through the crowd, fleeing the battlefield. The leopard continues its rampage, its fierce eyes locked on the soldiers. ETA reports that this monster is stronger than the giant level 2 brown bear from before. Just then, the army opens fire. The tank's first shot hits the monster right on the head. The soldiers start cheering, saying they hit it. If we hit its face, it's definitely done for. But when the dust clears, only stunned, amazed eyes remain. They see the monster's head intact with only one scratch. The leopard's fury erupts. It turns toward the tank, ready to pounce. In a flash, its giant claw slams down, immobilizing the tank. It lifts the war machine and opens its mouth full of sharp fangs, swallowing the toy whole. But at that moment, a streak of light flashes by. Han leaps off the ground, charging toward the leopard at lightning speed. In his mind, he's never felt more grateful for his invisibility ability than right now. The leopard's blazing red eyes are right in front of him. In just a moment, the spear will pierce its forehead. The leopard screams in pain and simultaneously releases the tank from its claws. The system announces this was a critical hit. The crowd below murmurs that Sunbon hasn't gone to the other world, yet we're saved. The tank falls freely to the ground while Han temporarily stands still, observing the situation. The leopard roars in pain, severely wounded in the eyes. After a moment's thought, Han decides to retreat from danger. With a strong kick, he flies into the air. The military leader shouts, "Now open full fire!" Following the calls, a barrage of bullets was fired continuously at the monster in hopes of taking it down. At the same time as Wai-Han moved toward the tank, he saw soldiers trapped inside. Without hesitation, he sliced the tank in half with his spear as if cutting through a can. The soldiers inside looked up in terror. But Wai-Han quickly reassured them, saying if they didn't want to die, they had to hold his hand tight. The soldiers grabbed him tightly. Wai-Han hugged both of them, then jumped out of the tank, and all three landed safely on the ground, leaving a deep dent from the impact. Only then did the two soldiers recover and thank Sunbon sincerely for the spectacular save. I didn't do this to be called a hero. I saved them simply because it was within my ability. Suddenly, he heard a disturbing sound. He turned his back to the two soldiers and ordered the troops to run immediately if they wanted to survive. The giant leopard, like a living mountain, stood towering above them. Its eyes were locked onto the target. Wai-Han told ETA he was sure this one was smarter than a bear. It clearly knew who the biggest threat was. ETA warned Wai-Han to be extremely careful, saying the leopard had already spotted him. The invisibility was disabled. Don't worry so much. This is an opponent I can defeat even if I have to face the monster head-on. It rushed forward at incredible speed. Not just Wai-Han, but everyone here was under threat. The military campaign commander shouted loudly, "This is our chance." They fired volleys of bullets from various weapons simultaneously at the leopard, but it was still unaffected. The monster was now focusing on Sunbon. This was the perfect moment to strike. One of the heroes shouted, "Everyone use magic and aim for the leopard's eyes." Suddenly, a lightning bolt appeared in the sky and struck the monster right on the spot, causing it to howl in pain. The people looked up and saw a helicopter with a girl inside surrounded by electric sparks. The crowd whispered, wondering if she had just taken the thunderstrike. No, some recognized her as the queen. She has arrived. But has the queen always been this beautiful? That beauty made many unable to look away. Below, the leopard continued to roar while the army kept firing. The monster quickly regained its spirit and charged straight at Yi-Han, but he didn't back down as if he had been waiting for this attack. The leopard's claws, sharp and fast, lunged forward, but Wai-Han timely jumped back to dodge. He jumped but couldn't avoid the first strike. One of the leopard's eyes hadn't recovered after Wai-Han's previous strike. He decided to attack that spot to take away the remaining eyesight. The crowd watched every move of Wai-Han, anxiously worried about what would happen if he sacrificed himself. Maybe all hope was lost here. The queen in the nearby helicopter also kept her eyes on the leopard, trying to spot Wai-Han in the chaotic crowd. Suddenly, someone in the crowd pointed and shouted at the leopard's feet, where blood began pooling on the asphalt. A quick glance revealed the leopard's head was covered with sharp spikes like a porcupine. Yi-Han was using the power from his armor. "I think my investment was worth it, right? You agree, don't you?" ETA. "Well, there's something I need to tell you. You look terrifying beyond imagination, you know that. Terrifying and unbelievable." But Wai-Han didn't care. In a life-or-death situation, looks no longer matter. But it's probably best not to let Lita see me like this, ha. At that moment, the leopard roared again, echoing through the area. Its head swipe knocked Wai-Han far away, almost making little ETA vomit. The leopard charged when it saw both of them knocked back. Its goal was to crush Wai-Han against the building across the street. A collision moments later sent debris flying everywhere. The spikes on Wai-Han's armor vanished, but he managed to jump back in time. A mid-air somersault and counterattack. This time, sharp spikes appeared under his shoe soles, pinning his feet to the giant leopard. All the while, he kept a firm grip on the spear in his hand. Consecutive direct stabs at the opponent. And the system displayed a series of critical hit notifications. Your critical hit skill has leveled up to 2. The military was watching closely and noticed the leopard had begun to slow down. Immediately, the order to open fire was given. Meanwhile, the civilians below, armed with hoes and clubs, all joined in. Not sure if it was effective, but the morale boost was certainly significant. With a level 2 monster attacks from level 1, people were almost useless. But no matter how tough it is, even a buffalo will die if you wear it down. The leopard's paws were still bleeding from the cuts they inflicted, proof that even a colony of ants can bring down an elephant. Standing on the leopard's carcass, Wai-Han contemplated the importance of strategy in this scene. Just then, ETA reminded him to finish quickly, but why they can handle the rest. She explained that this leopard was on the verge of evolving to level 3. Soon after, the leopard opened its eyes fiercely. From the wound on its head, red tentacle-like things wriggled out as if trying to catch all nearby living creatures. Wai-Han shouted, "Disgusting, what the hell is that?" Terrifying. Maybe its upper body is starting to mutate and the evolution process is happening way too fast. Of course, seeing that Wai-Han didn't hesitate and ran away as fast as he could. "I'm no good with tentacles, so call the archer or the princess knight or whoever the angel snapped. You know this isn't the time to joke around, right? If you die, I won't be able to help at all." Yi-Han knew that it hadn't fully transformed into a true level 3 monster yet. This was the golden opportunity to finish it before it was too late. Before he could act, a giant lightning bolt struck the monster, destroying the wriggling tentacles. Ihan looked up and saw the helicopter where the queen was sitting, and she shouted that he couldn't kill it with just his spear alone. The level gap was too big. Indeed, this thing could regenerate too fast, far beyond the damage he could deal. He knew he had to find a way to deal enough damage to stop its healing. The queen turned to Ihan and shouted, "I can empower you with magic, but afterward I'll be completely drained of mana, meaning you must kill it then, or all will be lost." As soon as she finished speaking, the queen leapt from the helicopter and dove toward the ground. "Then I entrust everything to you." For a moment, Ihan was stunned by her reckless act. She really jumped and free fell. While he was still gaping speechlessly, the queen was already standing right in front of him. She said she had to touch him directly to empower him, then she'd use all her mana and couldn't help him any further. "My life depends on you, Ihan." What confusion? What does she mean by that? But without waiting another second, the queen raised her hand and began. Immediately, the system announced that the Thunder Soul had been possessed. Attack power, movement speed, and critical hit rate increased by 50% for 30 seconds. When attacking, lightning would strike at a certain rate. However, after the effect ended, all skill efficiency would be halved for 3 minutes. Incredible. ETA said, "For a human, this is amazing. How skilled must she be to regulate mana and empower at just level 1? Ihan wasted no time and decided to strike immediately. With a battle cry, he charged forward and plunged his spear deep into the leopard. The attack carried thunder that blasted brightly across the body. The queen shouted a warning that if he didn't kill it now, the military would launch missiles. Then the damage would be uncontrollable. Ihan's mind flashed he couldn't let that happen. His factory was nearby. He immediately used the empowered critical hit skill and launched successive strikes. Blood splattered after each click. The system immediately notified you received 784,983 experience points and reached level 28. Strength, agility, stamina, and mana all increased by 5. You have obtained the record of the level 87 giant leopard. Theo finally finished. ETA praised Ihan, saying he did very well. It's great that you defeated it before it reached level 3. At that moment, the queen ran over amazed, asking if it was really dead. "Yes. Didn't you receive any experience points at all?" "Ah, maybe because I wasn't in the same group as you." The answer left Ihan confused. "What's this different group thing?" "There's a group system here. I always act alone, so I don't know anything about it." ETA, with mind-reading ability, muttered, "Yeah, loners like you wouldn't join a group anyway." Just then, a system announcement sounded. "The enhancement effect has ended. The effectiveness of all skills will be halved for 3 minutes." Nearby, the leopard started to collapse. Its fall caused a tremor in the city due to its massive body. Luckily, if it had fallen just a little more, its corpse could have crushed Ihan. The crowd around shouted excitedly, "You did it, Sunbone. We won." Ihan stood frozen, stunned by the cheers below. Everyone also chanted the queen's name. The queen's thunderous assistance was truly impressive. ETA turned to Ihan and said, "You're being praised, so cheer up." But then she realized something about his behavior was very strange. The enemy was defeated, so why are there no more monsters here? Ihan muttered slowly, sweat on his worried face. "I just realized the leopard's skin is all torn up. I can't make new armor from it anymore." "Oh, so this really matters that much. Should I beat it up a bit more then?" Meanwhile, the soldiers began discussing how to split the loot now. A soldier said, "Although the weight halved after death, we still need to carve it up first." Just as he was about to stab the knife, a voice called from behind, "Wait a minute, Ihan." You stepped forward and said handling monster corpses is your specialty. You turned to apologize to the queen and asked how she wanted to divide the leopard's body. Whispering voices in the crowd. "Wow, she's really beautiful." Didn't expect the queen to be this pretty. She thought for a moment, then told Ihan, "You take 60% and I'll take 20%. The rest goes to the others." Ihan looked at everyone, wondering if anyone objected. Then he looked up at the sky and muttered, "If it's 60%. Immediately after, he bent his knees and jumped onto the leopard's body. Without hesitation, he plunged his hand into the wound on the monster's head, blood splattering everywhere. After just 1 second, a pink magic stone appeared in his hand. He thought to himself, "I knew there'd be one here." The crowd below gasped, "That's a level 2 magic stone." The queen commented, "Maybe this stone alone counts for 60% of the loot." Hand clenched the stone in his hand. "Then this is my share. The rest you all can divide however you want." A soldier objected, "But that's a magic stone, it should be counted separately." Exactly. Many others joined in. "We all risked our lives to take down the leopard. We don't accept this kind of division." "Just as expected, this low-level bunch is hopeless," ETA muttered disappointedly. "They all act just like Ihan." Ihan turned to the crowd. All right, if everyone objects, then let's divide it another way. That's better. The people below were thrilled that their opponent finally understood their wishes. He's someone who listens to others' opinions. EDA asked what he planned to do. Are you really going to give them the magic stone? But Han knew convincing others in this situation wouldn't be easy. He remembered his mother's advice, son, talking to people who always want to compete with you is very hard. So why use words when we can use fists to debate? After hearing Han's story, even the ETA was left speechless in front of this mother and child. Truly, a tiger mother gives birth to a tiger cub. Then Han turned to the angel, a good child. So I will obey my mother. Heh heh. Han held the stone in his hand, facing everyone, and said, I will yield the magic stone, but in an unexpected way. You threw the magic stone back into the body of the leopard. Now you can take it however you like. And as I said before, I will only take my share. Then he jumped to the ground and added, of course, if I don't get enough 60%, then no one will leave here intact. Clearly, this is a warning from Sunbon to the greedy, lazy crowd. They thought he was a gentle person, but it seems that's not the case. The crowd began whispering anxiously and regretting their actions. Because even if they combined forces, they couldn't do anything to that hero. After a quick discussion, a few people stepped forward and said to Han, just take the magic stone. A soldier added, just take whatever you want. Although they couldn't see the hero's face, they were sure he was pleased with the crowd's change of attitude. Then Han jumped back onto the leopard's body to find the magic stone. At that moment, the queen spoke from behind, if you give me a share when processing, I will give you 40% of mine. Han found it reasonable and agreed immediately. Time passed and the leopard's body was neatly stacked nearby. Han thought they'd probably need a truck to carry all this. Before the thought finished, the queen had already made a call. It seemed like she was calling for a vehicle. He thought to himself that she must come from a wealthy family, or be some kind of business owner. Come to think of it, she flew here by helicopter anyway. A shy soldier asked Brother Sunbon, can you help us handle our share too? This development didn't make Han very happy. Luckily, he was wearing a mask. Otherwise, the crowd would have all run away. The crowd began sweating as Sunbon just stayed silent. If they get robbed of their share now, well, it's tough luck. There's no way to fight back. Let's end this part here, everyone. Don't forget to like and subscribe to catch the next part. I sincerely thank you.